Forget one for all. Izuku's power is a fever that burns infinite. They thought he was reckless, but he's just waiting for the music to start. With his jackpot, he doesn't save the world with a smile. He saves it with a gamble. Always bet on Izuku.
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The convenience store on the corner of Musutafu's shopping district had seen better days. Faded posters advertised Quirk-licensed products, and the fluorescent lights buzzed with that particular frequency that made your teeth ache. But none of that mattered to the green-haired boy standing in front of the gacha machine, rolling a 100-yen coin between his knuckles with practiced ease. Izuku Midoriya was 10 years old, and he was about to make the biggest bet of his young life. "You're still here?" The store clerk leaned over the counter, cigarette dangling from his lips despite the no-smoking sign 3 feet away. "Kid, you've been staring at that machine for 20 minutes. Either play or get lost." Izuku's eyes never left the machine. Inside the plastic dome, dozens of capsules tumbled over each other in mechanical chaos. Most contained common All Might merchandise: keychains, stickers, cheap plastic figures. But somewhere in that sea of mediocrity was the prize: a holographic collector's card from All Might's debut year, mint condition, 1 in 5,000 odds. The other kids at Aldera Junior High thought he was weird for obsessing over hero merchandise when he didn't even have a flashy quirk. Bakugo called him a waste of space. The teachers wrote him off as a troublemaker who'd amount to nothing. They were all boring. "The fever's building," Izuku muttered, and something in his voice made the clerk take a step back. The air around the boy had changed, gaining a texture like sandpaper against reality itself. "I can feel it." He slotted the coin home and turned the knob. The capsule dropped with a hollow plastic thunk that seemed to echo far longer than physics should allow. Izuku caught it before it hit the dispenser tray, and the moment his fingers closed around the smooth surface, the world shifted. Music erupted from nowhere, a deep, aggressive funk beat that made the store windows rattle. The clerk shouted something, but his voice was drowned out by the electronic bass that seemed to originate from the space between moments. Neon green energy crackled along Izuku's arms, rough and serrated like broken glass given liquid form. "What the hell?" The clerk stumbled backward, knocking over a display of instant ramen. Izuku twisted the capsule open, and there it was. The holographic card caught the fluorescent light and threw it back in a rainbow cascade. All Might in his prime, fist raised to the sky, that impossible smile promising that everything would be okay. The music faded. The green energy dissipated like steam. Izuku tucked the card into his jacket pocket and walked out without another word, leaving the clerk to wonder if he'd imagined the whole thing. He hadn't. That night, lying in his small bedroom surrounded by hero posters and analysis notebooks he'd stopped writing in months ago, Izuku stared at his hands and watched the green energy dance between his fingers. It felt natural, like he'd been doing it his whole life. No, like he'd done it in a different life, in a different world where the rules were different, but the stakes were just as high. "Fever never lies," he said to the empty room, and grinned. 5 years later, Izuku Midoriya had built himself a reputation. He wasn't a model student. His grades were average, his attendance spotty, and his disciplinary record thick enough to use as a weapon. But he had something more valuable than academic achievement. He had presence. When Izuku walked into a room, people noticed. When he spoke, people listened. And when he ran the underground betting pools on everything from cafeteria food quality to who'd win the latest hero ranking poll, people paid. Aldera Junior High's faculty knew about the gambling rings. They just couldn't prove anything. And more importantly, they couldn't figure out what to do about the green-haired boy who looked at authority figures like they were particularly boring card games. Midoriya. Principal Fukuda called him into the office on a Tuesday, third period. The man's quirk let him detect lies, which made him insufferable at parent-teacher conferences and useless against Izuku, who simply didn't lie. He bent rules until they snapped, but he never broke his word. I'm hearing rumors about betting pools on the upcoming UA entrance exam. Izuku slouched in the chair across from the principal's desk, ankles crossed, completely relaxed. His uniform was a disaster. Untucked shirt, loose tie, jacket slung over one shoulder. Rumors are just that, Principal. Unless you've got proof? The exam is in 3 days. You're actually planning to take it? Why wouldn't I? Your grades are acceptable. Izuku's green eyes fixed on the principal with an intensity that made the older man uncomfortable. UA doesn't just look at written tests. They want students with drive, with passion, with fever that burns so hot it can't be ignored. He leaned forward and that rough energy flickered around him for just a moment. Tell me, Principal, when's the last time you felt that kind of fever? Fukuda cleared his throat. Just try not to cause an incident. UA has zero tolerance for, yeah, I'll be good. Izuku stood, stretched, and walked out before being dismissed. In the hallway, Bakugo Katsuki was waiting, arms crossed and scowl firmly in place. His explosion quirk made his palms smoke with barely contained irritation. Oi, Midoriya, you seriously think you can get into UA with that weak-ass quirk of yours? Izuku grinned. Weak? Bakugo buddy, you still don't get it. He walked past the blonde, bumping shoulders deliberately. I don't need a flashy quirk, I just need the right odds. The hell does that mean? It means, Izuku called over his shoulder, that while you're busy making explosions, I'm making calculated bets. And I always win. Bakugo's palms crackled with premature detonations, but Izuku was already gone, disappeared into the crowd of students with that infuriating smirk still on his face. The day before the UA entrance exam, Izuku decided to take a walk through downtown Musutafu. The spring air was pleasant, the streets busy with the afternoon rush. Pro heroes occasionally zipped overhead, responding to minor incidents or just patrolling. It was peaceful. Boring. Then he heard the screams. Izuku's head snapped toward the sound, and that familiar feeling started building in his chest. The fever. The electric anticipation that came before something interesting happened. He took off running, not away from danger but toward it, because what was life without a little risk? The crowd had formed a loose circle around the shopping district's main intersection. In the center, a massive sludge villain had erupted from the sewer system, its amorphous body spread across the pavement like toxic waste, given malicious intent. And trapped inside, barely visible through the translucent green slime, was a middle school student choking on liquid villain. Heroes were trying to contain the situation. Death Arms threw punches that splashed harmlessly through the sludge. Kamui Woods attempted to bind the villain, but his wood construct simply sank into the fluid mass. Backdraft worked to keep civilians back, while prevent fires from spreading. It's no good. The villain's body is too fluid. We can't get a solid hit. Where's a hero with the right quirk? We need someone who can... Izuku stopped listening. He was already calculating odds. Sludge villain, fluid body, likely weak to temperature extremes or attacks that can disrupt liquid cohesion. Trapped victim, approximately 45 seconds before asphyxiation based on visible struggle intensity. Pro heroes, competent but quirk incompatible with the threat. Civilian intervention, illegal, reckless, potentially fatal. Success rate if he acted now, approximately 38%. He liked those odds. Hey, Izuku vaulted the hero line barrier before anyone could stop him. Ugly. Over here. The sludge villain's eyes, two bulbous protrusions in the muck, swiveled toward him. Another brat? Perfect. I'll take you both as hostages. The crowd shouted warnings. The heroes yelled at him to get back. Izuku ignored them all and charged straight at the villain lay, green energy already crackling along his arms. The sludge lunged, a pseudopod of liquid malice reaching for him. Izuku ducked under it and drove his fist into the villain's mass. And that's when everyone heard it. The funk music exploded across the intersection, that same aggressive beat from the convenience store 5 years ago, but louder, more intense, undeniable. It wasn't coming from speakers or someone's phone, it was just there, vibrating through the air itself, like reality had decided to provide a soundtrack. Izuku's punch connected, and the sludge villain screamed. What how you're hurting me. That's just a regular punch. Regular? Izuku laughed, wild and free, as he delivered a combination that would make professional boxers weep. Each strike carried that rough, serrated energy, and each impact tore through the sludge like a chainsaw through water. There's nothing regular about me. The villain tried to engulf him, but Izuku was already moving, his body guided by instincts that felt both new and ancient. He could feel the fever building higher, the probability space around him crystallizing into something he could almost touch. Not yet time for the full technique, but enough to make this interesting. He grabbed the trapped student, Bakugo, he realized with some amusement, and yanked him free with a burst of rough energy that shredded the sludge's grip. Bakugo gasped for air, coughing up green slime. You, Midoriya, what the hell? Save it. Izuku shoved Bakugo toward the hero line and turned back to the villain. I'm busy. The sludge villain reconstituted itself, anger replacing its earlier confidence. You little shit! I'll drown you in my... A massive impact crater appeared in the pavement between them. I am here! All Might arrived in his typical dramatic fashion, having apparently been in the area and drawn by the commotion. The symbol of peace stood at full height, smile blazing, presence overwhelming. He took in the scene instantly. Bakugo safe, sludge villain contained, and Izuku standing in the middle of it all with green energy still crackling around his fists. Young man, are you? Fine. Izuku waved off the concern. Was just about to finish this, but hey, you're All Might? Want to do the honors? The sludge villain made a break for the sewers. All Might was faster. Detroit smash! The punch created a windstorm that changed the local weather patterns. The sludge villain splattered across 3 city blocks and immediately lost consciousness. The rain that had been threatening all day finally came, washing the streets clean. Izuku stood in the downpour, let it cool the fever in his blood, and smiled. After the cleanup, after the heroes had collected the villain and the crowd had dispersed, All Might found Izuku sitting on a bench 2 blocks away, completely unbothered by the rain. Young man, that was incredibly reckless. Maybe. Izuku didn't look up, but it worked. All Might deflated into his skeletal true form, coughing blood into his hand. The transformation caught Izuku's attention, but not in the way All Might expected. Instead of shock or horror, Izuku looked interested. That's your real form? Huh. And you've been keeping up the buff appearance as what? A symbol? That's a hell of a bluff, All Might. Respect. Toshinori Yagi blinked. You're not surprised? I'm surprised you've maintained it this long. That takes dedication. Izuku finally stood, meeting the skeletal hero's eyes. But I get it. Heroes are as much about the image as the action. You're betting on people's belief in the symbol of peace to maintain order. It's a good play. You speak about heroism like it's a game. Everything's a game if you look at it right. Izuku stretched, joints popping. The question is whether you're playing to win or just playing not to lose. Most people play not to lose. Boring. All Might studied the boy in front of him. Green hair plastered to his head from the rain, uniform a disaster, posture relaxed despite having just fought a villain. And those eyes, sharp, calculating, burning with something that All Might recognized because he'd seen it in his own mirror once upon a time. Hunger, drive, fever. Your quirk, All Might said. That energy you used. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, well, it's one of a kind. Izuku started walking, hands in pockets. Called jackpot. It's all about probability, luck, and knowing when to bet big. And UA? Are you betting on getting in? Izuku looked back over his shoulder and his grin was all teeth. I'm not betting on getting in, All Might. I'm betting on winning. There's a difference. The entrance exam for UA High School was held on a Saturday in late February. 3,000 applicants showed up for 400 slots across multiple courses. The air vibrated with nervous energy, teenage anxiety, and desperation. Izuku loved it. He walked through the gates wearing his Aldura uniform modified with a jacket that had "Bet on Me" embroidered on the back in English. Other students gave him looks ranging from confused to intimidated. He ignored them all, focused on the building fever in his chest. This was it. The biggest stage yet. Thousands of competitors, pro heroes watching a test designed to push quirks to their limits. The odds of any individual student securing a top score were astronomically low. Perfect. The written exam came first. Izuku breezed through it with the confidence of someone who'd spent 5 years analyzing hero statistics for betting pools. He knew rescue protocols, villain classification systems, quirk law, and structural engineering better than most pro heroes. Not because he studying was boring, but because understanding the game meant winning the game. After the written portion, all examinees were directed to the orientation hall for the practical exam briefing. President Mike took the stage with his usual explosive enthusiasm, and even Izuku had to admit the man knew how to work a crowd. Welcome to today's live performance, everybody. Can I get a hey? Silence from the nervous crowd. Wow, tough audience. All right, let's break down the rules of the practical exam. The explanation was straightforward. 10-minute battle trial in a mock city. Destroy robots worth varying points. Avoid the zero-pointer. Standard stuff. Izuku found it predictable, but the underlying principle was sound. They wanted to see raw combat capability and decision-making under pressure. A hand shot up in the crowd. Some blue-haired kid with glasses. Excuse me, but the handout mentions 4 types of villains, yet you've only explained 3. If this is an error in official UA materials, it's unacceptable. Additionally, you in the back with the green hair, you've been muttering calculations this entire time. It's distracting. Izuku hadn't realized he'd been doing it, but yeah, he probably had been running probability matrices out loud. Old habit. The 4th robot is worth 0 points. Present Mike explained. It's an obstacle to avoid, not fight. And as for muttering, kid's probably just nervous. Cut him some slack. Izuku wasn't nervous. He was calculating optimal routes through a theoretical urban environment, factoring in robot distribution patterns and point maximization strategies. But sure, let the glasses kid think what he wanted. They were assigned to different battle centers. Izuku ended up in Battle Center C with a random assortment of other examinees, none of whom he recognized or cared about. As they gathered at the starting line, he noticed a girl with brown hair and pink cheek marks stretching enthusiastically. This is so exciting. I mean, also terrifying, but mostly exciting. Izuku glanced at her. First time betting your future on a single test? She blinked. I guess, when you put it that way, it sounds way more stressful. Nah. Izuku rolled his shoulders, feeling the rough energy building under his skin. Stress is just fever waiting to ignite. You either burn or you don't. That's actually kind of inspirational. Thanks. Now stop talking to me. I need to focus. The girl looked taken aback but moved away. Izuku didn't feel bad about it. This wasn't a social event. This was a competition, and he'd never lost a bet he cared about. Present Mike's voice boomed across the facility. And start! Nobody moved. What's wrong? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go, go, go. Izuku was already gone, a green blur that left the other examinees in the dust. The mock city sprawled before him, 10 square blocks of urban terrain filled with robot enemies programmed to attack on sight. 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, all potential points, all potential obstacles, all just numbers in a probability matrix. A 1-pointer rounded the corner, targeting sensors locking onto him. Izuku didn't slow down. He drove his fist into its chassis with rough energy coating his knuckles, and the robot crumpled like aluminum foil. The serrated quality of his power shredded internal circuits, and the machine sparked out before hitting the ground. Too easy. He parkoured off the destroyed robot, vaulted a car, and encountered a cluster of 2-pointers. 3 of them, sensors glowing red, arm cannons charging. Mathematical probability of dodging all 3 simultaneous attacks. 42%. He liked those odds too. The robots fired. Izuku twisted between the energy blasts, the funk music starting to pulse in the background as his fever built. His counterstrike took out 2 robots with a single spinning kick, rough energy sawing through their joints. The third he grabbed and used as a battering ram against a 3-pointer that had emerged from a side street. 5 robots down. 19 points. Time elapsed. 45 seconds. This was boring. Other examinees were spreading throughout the mock city now, using their quirks in creative ways. A kid with tape quirk was swinging between buildings. Someone with a hardening quirk was tanking robot attacks. The brown-haired girl from earlier was making debris float and dropping it on machines, all perfectly adequate strategies. All perfectly boring. Izuku needed more. He needed the fever to build higher, the stakes to escalate, the probability space to crystallize into something he could really gamble on. These small fry robots weren't cutting it. Then the ground shook. Students screamed. Izuku turned toward the disturbance and grinned. The zero-pointer had arrived. It was massive, easily 8 stories tall, a mechanical monstrosity that dwarfed the buildings around it. Its design was pure intimidation. Cannon arms, reinforced armor plating, glowing optical sensors that swept the street like searchlights from hell. The ground cracked under its weight with each thunderous step. Everyone was running away. Izuku ran toward it. Now this is what I'm talking about. The zero-pointer's sensors locked onto him, and its arm cannons began charging with a whine that set his teeth on edge. Energy built in those massive barrels, enough firepower to level a city block. Any sane person would retreat. Izuku kept running, the fever building to a crescendo, and reached into that space between probability and certainty where his true power lived. Domain expansion. The world shattered like glass and reformed as something new. The mock city street transformed into a train station platform, massive and ornate, with tracks extending into impossible distances. Overhead, pachinko indicators lit up in neon brilliance, displaying romance manga panels that flashed between various emotional scenarios. The zero-pointer found itself standing in this new reality, its targeting system struggling to process the sudden environmental shift, and in the center of it all, a massive pachinko machine materialized, gleaming metal and flashing lights, already beginning to spin. Idle death gamble, Izuku announced to no one in particular, because the zero-pointer wasn't capable of appreciating the moment. But he said it anyway. Style mattered. The domain's sure-hit effect activated. Information flooded into the zero-pointer's processors. All the rules of the game, the probability matrices, the win conditions, the romance manga scenarios that determined outcomes. For a machine designed for combat, the sudden influx of data about dating scenarios and pachinko mechanics was catastrophic. Its movements stuttered. Its targeting systems glitched. It was still dangerous, still capable of destruction, but it was processing, and that processing time was all Izuku needed. The pachinko machine spun. Indicators flashed, normal Ricci, base probability 1 in 239. The balls dropped. Students who'd been fleeing stopped and stared as the train station environment overlaid reality around them. They could see everything. The platform, the manga panels, the spinning pachinko machine with its cascading metal balls. Some of them had fallen when the domain expanded. Others were frozen in shock. The brown-haired girl was among those on the ground. She'd been running when the zero-pointer appeared, and a piece of falling debris had trapped her leg. She stared up at the transformed world, then at Izuku standing calmly in the center, and her eyes went wide. The pachinko machine's indicators aligned. 3 identical numbers. Jackpot. The domain shattered, reality snapping back to normal, except for 2 critical changes. The romance song Admiring You began playing from everywhere and nowhere, and Izuku's body erupted with enough rough-cursed energy to make the air shimmer green. In the next 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Izuku said, cracking his knuckles, I'm effectively immortal. The zero-pointer fired. The energy blast should have vaporized him. Instead, Izuku stood in the smoking crater where he'd been standing, completely unharmed, as the automatic reverse curse technique healed damage faster than it could be inflicted. His clothes were shredded, his skin should have been burned, but he was perfect, whole, and grinning like a maniac. My turn. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a dismantling. Izuku launched himself at the zero-pointer with infinite cursed energy fueling every movement. His first punch cracked its armored plating, rough energy cutting through reinforced steel like it was paper. The robot tried to grab him. He danced up its arm, each footstep leaving serrated damage, and drove his fist into its optical sensor. The zero-pointer's other arm swung around, massive cannon aimed point blank. It fired. The explosion engulfed Izuku completely, heat and force that should have reduced him to atoms. He walked out of the smoke, already healed, and laughed. Come on, is that all you've got? For 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Izuku Midoriya tore the zero-pointer apart piece by piece. He didn't need strategy or tactics. He had unlimited energy and automatic healing. Every punch shattered components. Every kick severed connections. The rough quality of his cursed energy sawed through the robot's structure until it couldn't support its own weight. Other examinees watched in stunned silence as this green-haired boy systematically destroyed the obstacle they'd been told to avoid. The funk music and Admiring You created a surreal soundtrack to the destruction. Who is that guy? His quirk is insane. Is he even a student, or did a pro hero sneak in? The zero-pointer fell to its knees. Internal systems failing, armor cracked, and bleeding hydraulic fluid. Izuku stood on its head, raised his fist, and delivered the final blow. The robot's skull caved in with a sound like a cathedral bell breaking, and then it was over. Silence fell. The music faded. Izuku's energy aura dissipated, his infinite power returning to its sealed state. He jumped down from the destroyed robot and landed in a crouch, perfectly fine. Not even breathing hard, the brown-haired girl was staring at him, debris still pinning her leg. Izuku walked over and lifted the concrete one-handed. "You all right?" "You, that was." "Yeah, I know. Try not to spread it around too much. I like maintaining some mystery." He helped her up, made sure she could stand, then turned away. "Exam's almost over. Better get some points if you haven't already." He walked off, leaving her stammering thanks to his back. When the exam ended, Izuku had accumulated 203 villain points from the various robots he'd destroyed before and during his zero-pointer execution. The proctors would later argue that the zero-pointer shouldn't count for points, but the destruction was so complete and the display so impressive that they created a new category, unprecedented action points. Izuku Midoriya finished the UA entrance exam with the highest score in the school's history. 2 weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived in a package that contained a holographic projector. All Might's image appeared in Izuku's bedroom, congratulating him on his acceptance and revealing the truth about the exam scoring. Apparently, they also awarded rescue points based on heroic actions. You saved young Uraraka from the debris and ensured several other students weren't caught in the zero-pointer's rampage. Your villain points alone would have secured your acceptance. But your rescue points put you even further ahead. Welcome to UA, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. Izuku closed the projector and leaned back in his desk chair. UA High School. The premier hero institution in Japan. The biggest stage, the highest stakes, the best competition. His fever had never burned hotter. "Always bet on Izuku," he muttered and smiled at the ceiling. The first day of class at UA was as chaotic as expected. The attack on campus by reporters created a stampede that Izuku watched with detached amusement. The blue-haired kid from the exam, Ida, apparently, took charge of the situation with his engine quirk and loud voice. Fine leadership material, if a bit rigid-odd. Class 1A assembled in their assigned homeroom, a collection of teenagers with wildly different quirks and backgrounds, all united by the fact that they'd passed UA's brutal entrance exam. Izuku recognized a few faces. Bakugo Katsuki from Aldera was there, looking furious about something as usual. Uraraka, the girl from the exam. Ida, of course. A bunch of others he didn't care about yet. The door slid open, and a caterpillar sleeping bag inched into the room like a possessed piece of camping equipment. Inside was a disheveled man with bloodshot eyes and the most exhausted expression Izuku had ever seen. It took you 8 seconds to settle down. In a real emergency, you'd all be dead. The man unzipped himself from the sleeping bag and stood, revealing a pro-hero outfit that looked like it had been through a war. "I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. Put these on and meet me outside." He threw gym uniforms at the class and shuffled toward the door. "Wait, we're doing a quirk assessment test?" someone asked. "What about the entrance ceremony? Orientation?" If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for frivolities. Aizawa's eyes gleamed red for a moment, and Izuku felt a strange sensation wash over him, like someone trying to grab onto his cursed energy and finding nothing to hold. Interesting. UA gives its teachers freedom to run their classes as they see fit. My policy is simple: prove you belong here or get expelled. The class went silent. Especially you, Midoriya. You had the highest entrance exam score in school history, but that just means you have the farthest to fall. Let's see if that performance was luck or skill. Izuku grinned. Finally, a teacher who gets it. This is going to be fun. Aizawa's eye twitched. We'll see if you're still smiling when I expel you. 30 minutes later, Class 1A stood in their gym uniforms on one of UA's many training fields. Aizawa explained the assessment. 8 physical tests using quirks. Whoever scored last would be expelled immediately. No appeals, no second chances. This is how the real world works, Aizawa said. Heroes don't get participation trophies. You win or you fail. Izuku could feel the fever building. This was exactly the kind of high-stakes scenario that made his blood sing. Around him, other students were panicking, strategizing, psyching themselves up. He just stretched and waited for his turn. Midoriya. Aizawa tossed him a softball. You had the top practical exam score. Show us what you've got. How far can you throw this? With or without my quirk? Obviously, with your quirk. This is a quirk assessment test. Izuku walked to the throwing circle, tossing the ball between his hands. He could do this the boring way, coat his arm in rough, cursed energy and chuck it a few hundred meters. That would be impressive enough to secure a good score. Or he could do it the interesting way. Hey, teach! What happens if I throw this ball so far it doesn't come down? Then you get infinite points and make my paperwork complicated. Stop stalling. Fair enough. Izuku took his stance, feeling the probability space around him crystallizing. He didn't need his full domain for this. Just a taste, just enough to hit a jackpot on the smallest possible scale. He threw the ball. The funk music erupted across the field. Green energy exploded from Izuku's arm, rough and serrated, and the softball didn't just fly. It tore through the air like a bullet through tissue paper, trailing green light and impossible momentum. It punched through the sound barrier, through clouds, through the upper atmosphere, until gravity and air resistance became theoretical problems rather than practical limitations. The display device in Aizawa's hand simply read, simply ray. Infinity meters, Izuku announced. Guess that complicates your paperwork. The class erupted in shocked exclamations. Aizawa stared at the display, then at Izuku, then back at the display. Explain your quirk. Now. It's called jackpot. Probability manipulation, luck augmentation, and gambling mechanics. The more I risk, the more I gain. The higher the fever burns, the stronger I get. Izuku shrugged. That throw? Small-scale application. You want to see the real thing, you'll need to give me better stakes than a ball toss. You can't just... Aizawa's scarf tendrils shot out, wrapping around Izuku's arms and torso. His eyes glowed red, his erasure quirk activating. I don't care how powerful your quirk is. In my class, you follow the rules. Izuku felt the erasure trying to take hold and laughed. Sorry, teach, but your quirk doesn't work on me. Not properly, anyway. Because it wasn't a quirk factor that could be erased. It was cursed energy, a fundamental force from a different reality entirely, woven into his soul through reincarnation. Aizawa could maybe suppress the surface manifestations, but the core remained untouchable. The hell do you mean it doesn't work? Exactly what I said. Your erasure is impressive, don't get me wrong, but it's trying to erase something that isn't quite a quirk. Izuku searched for words that wouldn't sound insane. It's more fundamental than that, like trying to erase someone's blood type. Aizawa released him, scowl deepening. We're going to have a long conversation about this later. For now, continue the assessment. The rest of the tests went similarly. Izuku dominated the grip strength test with rough energy enhancement. He blitzed the 50-meter dash. He achieved ridiculous results on every metric, all without entering a full jackpot state. Around him, other students showed off impressive abilities. Bakugo's explosions, Todoroki's ice, Ida's speed. But Izuku's consistent excellence across all categories put him firmly at the top. When the final rankings appeared on Aizawa's display, no one was surprised to see Izuku Midoriya in first place. As for the expulsion, Aizawa said, and the relief on some students' faces was palpable, that was a logical ruse to make you perform your best. Bullshit, Izuku said casually. You totally would have expelled someone if they really sucked, but nobody here sucks, so your bluff got called. Aizawa's glare could have melted steel. Midoriya, principal's office, now. Can't. Class is starting soon, right? And you said we don't have time for frivolities. Seems like a conversation that can wait until after school. Izuku walked past the teacher, heading back toward the changing rooms. Besides, I didn't break any rules. I just didn't fall for your psychological warfare. That's basic strategy. Teach. Behind him, Bakugo was seething. Todoroki looked contemplative. Uraraka seemed torn between impressed and concerned. Ida looked like his entire worldview was being challenged. Aizawa just sighed and made a mental note to request hazard pay. The first few days of UA classes established a pattern. Academics were fine. Izuku understood the material and participated when interested. Physical training was easy. His cursed energy gave him advantages in every category. Social dynamics were the most interesting part. Bakugo Katsuki refused to acknowledge that Izuku had surpassed him. Every interaction was hostile, every conversation an argument. The blonde explosion user couldn't accept that the kid he'd dismissed as worthless had become the class powerhouse. "Your quirk is just flashy tricks," Bakugo snarled during lunch on the third day. "You got lucky with genetics, that's all." "Funny thing about luck," Izuku said, not looking up from his food. "The harder I work, the luckier I get. But sure, tell yourself it's just genetics, whatever helps you sleep at night." Bakugo's palms sparked. Izuku's green energy flickered in response. Other students in the cafeteria started backing away. Boys. A hand landed on each of their shoulders. Midnight had appeared from nowhere, her presence immediately diffusing the situation. "Save it for the training exercises. UA has a zero-tolerance policy for fighting outside designated areas." "Wasn't going to fight," Izuku said. "Just having a conversation. A conversation that was about to turn into property damage. Go back to eating before I put you both in detention." Bakugo stormed off. Izuku finished his lunch peacefully, unbothered. Uraraka approached his table afterward, flanked by a pink-skinned girl with horns and a guy with a bird head. "Mind if we sit? Free country," Izuku gestured at the empty seats. "I'm Ashido Mina, that's Tokoyami Fumikage. We wanted to ask about your quirk." "What about it? During the assessment test, that music that played, does it always happen? And the green energy, is that a physical manifestation or more conceptual?" And, "Mina, you're overwhelming him," Uraraka said. "No, it's fine." Izuku leaned back in his chair. "The music is part of the quirk, non-diegetic sound that manifests when I use significant power. The energy is physical, you can feel it if it hits you, and it has a rough, cutting quality. As for the mechanics, it's complicated. Probability manipulation isn't straightforward." "Probability manipulation," Tokoyami repeated, "a quirk that bends chance itself. The darkness whispers that such power courts dangerous fate. Your darkness needs to chill. It's just a quirk. Just a quirk that let you destroy a zero-pointer," Ashido pointed out. "That's not normal, even for UA." Izuku shrugged. "I got a good roll. Jackpot activated at the right time. It happens." They didn't need to know about the domain expansion, the curse technique, the reincarnation aspect. Let them think it was just a powerful quirk. Simpler that way, the conversation drifted to other topics. Classes, teachers, the upcoming training exercises. Izuku participated enough to be social but kept his cards close. These were classmates, potential allies, maybe even friends eventually. But this was still UA, still a competition, and he hadn't survived 5 years of underground gambling by showing his full hand too early. Later that week, All Might taught their first hero basic training class. The massive hero stood at the front of the classroom in his golden age costume, smile blazing, presence filling the space. "Welcome, young heroes. Today we'll be conducting battle trials." The class erupted in excitement. Combat training. Finally. A chance to use their quirks against each other in a controlled environment. You'll be split into teams of 2, heroes versus villains, in indoor combat scenarios. The hero team must capture the villains or secure the objective. The villain team must protect the objective or eliminate the heroes. These are your costumes, designed based on the specifications you submitted. Costume cases emerged from the wall, each numbered for a student. Izuku found his number 1, because of course, and opened it to reveal something that made him grin. The costume was simple but effective. Black pants with reinforced knees, a loose green jacket with high collar, fingerless gloves, and a minimalist mask that covered the lower half of his face. The jacket had jackpot embroidered across the back in neon green thread. No cape, no excessive armor, nothing that would restrict movement. Perfect. In the changing rooms, Bakugo was complaining loudly about something. Kirishima, the hardening quirk user, was trying to calm him down. Ida was lecturing someone about proper costume maintenance. Normal teenage chaos. Izuku changed quickly and headed to Ground Beta, one of UA's many training facilities designed to simulate urban environments. The rest of the class assembled, each in their own costume ranging from practical to absurd. All might explain the exercise rules, then announced the team assignments. Izuku ended up paired with Uraraka for the hero team, facing against Todoroki and a girl named Yaoyorozu as the villains. "This will be interesting," Izuku muttered. Uraraka looked nervous. "Todoroki is really strong. His quirk is half ice, half fire, right?" "Just ice, actually. He's only using half his power." Izuku had noticed during the quirk assessment, the kid had massive ice abilities but never once used fire. Psychological block, probably. Family issues, definitely. Which makes him predictable. And Yaoyorozu can create anything as long as she knows its molecular structure. She's super smart. Smart is good. Smart means she'll have a plan. Plans are predictable. Izuku cracked his knuckles. "Here's our strategy. You make debris float. I break things. Simple." That's not really a strategy. Sure it is. Overcomplicate things and you give your opponent time to counter. Keep it simple, keep them reacting, maintain momentum. The buzzer sounded, marking the start of the exercise. Let's go. They entered the building through the ground floor. Yaoyorozu had likely created surveillance equipment, meaning their entry was already known. Todoroki would be setting up ice barriers to control movement. Standard defensive strategy for a protection scenario, Izuku led them up the stairs, rough energy crackling along his fists. The first ice barrier appeared on the third floor, a solid wall of frozen water blocking the entire hallway. "I can make us float over it." Izuku punched through the ice. The rough quality of his energy shattered the barrier like glass, leaving a gaping hole. Or that works. They pressed forward. More ice barriers appeared, each one larger and more complex than the last. Todoroki was feeling them out, testing their responses. Izuku destroyed each obstacle with casual efficiency, not using anything close to his full power. On the 5th floor, Todoroki finally showed himself. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Ice erupted from the floor, walls, and ceiling simultaneously, attempting to freeze both hero team members in a crystalline prison. Uraraka yelped and activated her quirk, making herself float to avoid the freezing floor. Izuku just let the ice come. It wrapped around his legs, his torso, his arms. Within seconds, he was encased in a solid block of ice thick enough to stop a tank round. Todoroki's expression remained neutral as he approached the frozen Izuku. "Your quirk is impressive, but against large-scale elemental attacks, close combat specialists struggle. This exercise is..." The ice exploded. Rough, cursed energy shredded the frozen prison from the inside out, and Izuku stepped through the fragments like they were paper streamers. His clothes were frosted, his skin should have been frostbitten, but he looked completely fine. "Nice try, half and half, but you're gonna need more than that." Todoroki's eyes widened fractionally, the most emotion he'd shown all week. "How did you..." Rough energy cuts through more than just physical materials. It disrupts constructs at a fundamental level. Izuku advanced, and green power flickered around him. "Your ice is impressive, don't get me wrong, but it's just frozen water, and frozen water shatters." Another ice wave came. Izuku ran through it, each step breaking through the forming ice, rough energy coating his body like armor. Todoroki created ice walls, ice spikes, ice barriers. Izuku destroyed them all with brutal efficiency. "Use your fire!" Izuku shouted. "Stop holding back. I don't need his power to win." His? Oh, daddy issues. Cool, but here's the thing, Todoroki, you're not betting on yourself. You're betting against your old man. That's boring. Izuku closed the distance, grabbed Todoroki by the collar, and slammed him against the wall. No rough energy, just physical strength. If you want to reject his power, fine. But do it because you chose to, not because you're afraid of becoming him. Otherwise, you're just letting him control you from a distance. Todoroki's hand ignited, fire erupted between them, forcing Izuku to release and jump back. The left side of Todoroki's body blazed with flame, his heterochromatic eyes reflecting the light. Finally! Izuku grinned behind his mask. Now we're talking! The fight escalated. Ice and fire together created devastating combination attacks. Steam filled the hallway. Temperature fluctuations would have killed a normal person. But Izuku danced through it all, rough energy protecting him from the worst effects, his combat instincts guiding every movement. Meanwhile, Uraraka had floated to the top floor and found the objective, a fake weapon that Yaoyorozu was guarding. The creation quirk user had built an impressive array of defensive equipment, but Uraraka's zero gravity applied to all of it at once, and the hero team secured the objective. Hero team wins. All Might's voice boomed through the building speakers. Izuku and Todoroki stopped mid-fight. Ice melted. Fire extinguished. They stood in the ruined hallway, both breathing hard, and Todoroki looked at his left hand like he'd never seen it before. I used his power. You used your power, Izuku corrected. Quirks are inherited, yeah, but they're yours once you've got them. What you do with it, that's your choice, your bet to make. Todoroki didn't respond, but something in his expression had changed. A crack in the ice, metaphorically speaking. Back in the observation room, All Might praised both teams for their performance. The class discussion focused on tactics, quirk applications, and the collateral damage that Izuku and Todoroki had caused. Young Midoriya, All Might said, your combat ability is exceptional, but you're somewhat destructive. Heroes must minimize damage to surroundings. Hard to minimize damage when the opponent is throwing around building-sized ice constructs. I worked with what I had. Nevertheless, property damage creates liability issues. Try to be more conscious of your environment. Sure thing. Izuku wasn't going to change his fighting style, but no point arguing with the symbol of peace in front of the whole class. The other matches proceeded without incident. Bakugo's team won through overwhelming aggression. Ida's team lost despite perfect strategy because his partner panicked. Various other students showed competence or lack thereof, but the buzz around Class 1A afterward was all about Izuku's fight with Todoroki. The way he'd shattered ice constructs, the way he'd pushed Todoroki to use both quirk aspects, the way he'd fought like this was just another Tuesday. Midoriya is way stronger than he showed in the entrance exam, someone whispered. Think he was holding back? Obviously. Did you see how casual he was? Like fighting Todoroki was fun, not dangerous. Izuku ignored the gossip. Let them speculate. Let them wonder. The fewer people who understood his true capabilities, the better, because UA was just the beginning. The real games were still to come. 2 weeks into the semester, Izuku had established himself as Class 1A's most controversial student. Top grades in practical exercises, acceptable performance in academics, and a complete disregard for social hierarchies that made teachers nervous and students wary. He'd also started running betting pools again. Nothing major, just friendly wagers on quiz scores, training results, who'd get called on in class. Pocket change for the most part, but it kept his skills sharp and his instincts honed. Aizawa knew about it. Everyone knew about it. Nobody could prove anything concrete enough to warrant disciplinary action. You're going to get yourself expelled, Uraraka said during lunch one day. She'd become something like a friend, though Izuku suspected it was more about her keeping an eye on him than genuine affection. Nah, I'm too valuable. UA wants strong heroes, and I'm the strongest student they've had in years. They'll tolerate my eccentricities. That's not how schools work. That's exactly how schools work. It's all about value proposition. I provide more value than I cost, so they keep me around. Simple economics. Izuku took a bite of his lunch. Besides, I haven't actually broken any rules. Betting pools aren't technically against the student code of conduct. They should be. Probably. But they're not. So here we are. The conversation was interrupted by an explosion of sound from the cafeteria entrance. Students were rushing to the windows, pointing at something outside. Izuku felt the fever spike in his chest before he consciously registered what was happening. UA's security alarm was blaring. The campus was under attack. Not reporters this time. Real villains. Izuku was moving before the evacuation order came through. While other students panicked and fled toward the exits, he went the opposite direction, toward the source of the disturbance. Aizawa would probably expel him for this. All Might would definitely lecture him. He didn't care. His fever was burning, and that meant something interesting was about to happen. The attack was centered on the USJ, Unforeseen Simulation Joint, a massive training facility designed for disaster rescue scenarios. Izuku arrived to find the entrance warped open by some kind of portal quirk, and inside, chaos. Villains. Dozens of them, scattered throughout the facility's various disaster zones. And at the center, standing in the main plaza, 3 figures that radiated danger even from a distance. One was made of purple mist, clearly the portal user. One was Anchild covered in severed hands, scratching at his neck compulsively. And one was a massive creature with an exposed brain and eyes that reflected no intelligence, only murderous instinct. Izuku's grin was feral. Now this is what I'm talking about. He entered the USJ at a sprint. The mist villain Kurogiri, he'd later learn, tried to warp him away. Izuku's rough energy disrupted the portal just enough to let him slip through sideways, ending up in the landslide zone instead of wherever the villain had intended. Fine. He'd fight his way back to the center. The villains in the landslide zone were small-time thugs with minor quirks. Izuku tore through them like a storm, each punch carrying that serrated edge that left them broken and bleeding. No mercy. No hesitation. These were adults who'd attacked a school. They'd made their bet and lost. Who the hell is this kid? He's just a student. How is he? Izuku grabbed the speaker by the face and slammed him into the ground hard enough to crack stone. Just a student? Yeah, but I'm the student who's going to ruin your day. Across the facility, his classmates were also fighting. Todoroki had frozen an entire zone. Bakugo was exploding everything in sight. Kirishima was tanking hits and protecting others, but Izuku wasn't thinking about them. He was thinking about the 3 villains in the center plaza and the combat high he'd get from fighting real threats. He crossed the landslide zone, the conflagration zone, and the ruin zone in under 3 minutes. Each area's villains fell to efficient, brutal violence. By the time Izuku reached the central plaza, his costume was torn and bloody, and his grin was wide enough to split his face. Aizawa was already fighting. The underground hero's capture weapon and close combat skills were neutralizing multiple villains, but the numbers were overwhelming. And worse, the massive creature, the Nomu, as the hand-covered villain called it, was advancing on the exhausted teacher. Eraserhead, meet Nomu. He's got shock absorption and super regeneration. Perfect counter to your fighting style. How's that for game design? The hand villain, Shigaraki Tamura, laughed. We're here to kill All Might, but killing his students works too. It's all part of the game. The Nomu grabbed Aizawa's arm. Bones crunched. The teacher screamed. Hey, ugly! Shigaraki and Kurogiri turned. Izuku stood at the plaza entrance, green energy crackling around him, covered in the blood of their subordinates. You want to play games? Let's see whose fever burns hotter. The Nomu released Aizawa and turned toward this new target. No intelligence in those eyes, just instinct and violence. Shigaraki studied Izuku with interest. Another student? But you feel different. Dangerous. What's your name, player? Izuku Midoriya. Remember it. Midoriya? Okay. Nomu, kill him. The Nomu moved. It crossed the distance between them in a single bound, fist already swinging toward Izuku's head with enough force to pulp a car. The speed was incredible, faster than any pro hero Izuku had seen. The power was absurd. The air compressed and cracked from the punch's wake. Izuku's rough energy met the Nomu's fist with a sound like reality tearing. The shockwave flattened surrounding debris. Cracks spread through the plaza floor. Both combatants held position, fist against fist, testing each other's strength. Then Izuku laughed. Shock absorption, huh? And regeneration? That's cute. He disengaged, jumped back, and felt the probability space crystallizing around him. This was it. The big bet. The ultimate gamble. But I've got something better. His cursed energy erupted, transforming the entire central plaza into a train station. Pachinko indicators appeared in the air. Romance manga panels flashed across invisible screens. The domain's construction speed was instant. 0.2 seconds from activation to completion. Domain expansion. Idle death gamble. Shigaraki stumbled as the environment changed. Kurogiri tried to create portals, but found the space resistant. The Nomu just stood there, processing the information dump that the domain forced into its brain. The massive pachinko machine manifested, already spinning. What the hell is this? Shigaraki scratched his neck frantically. This isn't a quirk. This is something else. Kurogiri, get us out. I cannot. The space itself rejects my warping. Then we fight. Nomu, kill that brat now! The Nomu charged. Izuku watched the pachinko machine, watched the indicators flashing, watched the probability matrices aligning. The domain's rules forced everyone inside to process the game mechanics, but only Izuku could benefit from the jackpot. The balls dropped. First spin, normal Ricci. 1 in 239 odds, miss. The domain stayed active. The Nomu's fist cratered the ground where Izuku had been standing. He danced away, rough energy slashing at the creature but doing minimal damage. Shock absorption was strong, and the regeneration filled in what little damage he could inflict. Second spin, Gold Ricci. Enhanced probability from the first attempt, the indicators aligned, 3 identical numbers, jackpot. Admiring You blasted across the USJ facility, mixing with the funk music to create an impossible soundtrack to impossible violence. Izuku's cursed energy exploded outward, unlimited and infinite, and he felt the automatic reverse curse technique activate in his core. In the next 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Izuku said, his voice carrying over the music, "I'm effectively immortal. Let's see what your Nomu can do." What followed wasn't a fight. It was a war. The Nomu punched through Izuku's chest. The hole closed instantly, ribs regenerating, organs reconstructing, blood returning. Izuku's counterpunch carried enough rough energy to tear a chunk from the Nomu's shoulder. The creature regenerated too, but slower. They traded blows at speeds that turned them into blurs. Each of Izuku's attacks carried that serrated edge that bypassed pure shock absorption through cutting damage. Each of the Nomu's attacks would have killed a normal human instantly. But Izuku wasn't normal, and for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, he was unkillable. Impossible, Shigaraki screamed. Nomu has multiple quirks. He's designed to fight All Might. How is some student? Izuku caught the Nomu's fist mid-swing, let the creature's other hand tear off his arm, regenerated it instantly, and drove his forehead into the Nomu's skull. "Because I don't play by your rules. My fever burns hotter than any quirk you can throw at me." The Nomu's brain was exposed. Izuku focused his rough energy into a surgical strike and punched directly into the frontal lobe. The creature screamed, the first sound it had made, and its movements became erratic. "No! No!" This isn't how the game works. Shigaraki lunged forward, decay quirk active, trying to touch Izuku and disintegrate him. Izuku caught his wrist, let the decay spread up his arm, and watched as the automatic reverse curse technique purged the foreign effect and regenerated the dissolved tissue. "Sorry, but status effects don't work on me during jackpot. Your quirk is worthless here." He threw Shigaraki away and returned to the Nomu. The creature was still dangerous, still fighting, but the brain damage had reduced its coordination. Izuku pressed the advantage, each punch carrying unlimited cursed energy, each impact tearing away more of the Nomu's structural integrity. "Kurogiri, we're leaving." "But the mission." "Forget the mission. Get us out before that kid kills us." A portal opened beneath Shigaraki and Kurogiri. They fell through, escaping. But the Nomu remained, either because it wasn't intelligent enough to retreat or because its handlers had abandoned it. Izuku didn't care which. He had 30 seconds left of jackpot time, and he was going to use every one of them. The final exchange was brutal. Izuku's rough energy attacks stacked up faster than the Nomu could regenerate. Limbs were severed. The exposed brain was pulverized. The creature that had been designed to fight All Might was systematically dismantled by a 15-year-old boy with infinite cursed energy and an unkillable body. When the 4 minutes and 11 seconds ended, the Nomu collapsed. Still alive, still breathing, but broken beyond immediate recovery. Izuku stood over it, chest heaving not from exhaustion but from the adrenaline high, covered in blood, both his own and the creature's. The domain faded. The music stopped. The train station dissolved back into the USJ Central Plaza, and All Might arrived. The symbol of peace burst through the entrance, ready to save the day, and found his students standing victorious over a creature that would have challenged even his full strength. Young Midoriya, what? How? Jackpot came through. Izuku's legs gave out and he sat down hard on the debris-strewn ground. Not from injury, his body was fine, healed completely by the automatic reverse cursed technique, just from the sudden absence of infinite energy. The villains escaped, sorry about that, got distracted by the big guy here. Aizawa was unconscious but alive, being tended to by the other students who'd fought their way to the plaza. Kirishima, Todoroki, Bakugo, and others stared at Izuku like he'd grown a second head. "You fought that thing?" Kirishima asked. "Alone?" "Yeah, it was fun." Izuku stood, stretched, and looked at the devastation around him. "Also, we should probably get Aizawa-sensei to Recovery Girl. Pretty sure that arm is broken in multiple places." All Might wanted to ask questions. All Might wanted explanations, but All Might was also a professional hero who recognized when medical attention took priority. Right. Everyone. The police are on their way. Injured students, gather here. Those who can move, help your classmates. The aftermath of the USJ attack was chaos. Police investigations, media frenzy, emergency parent meetings. UA went into lockdown mode, implementing new security measures and reviewing their crisis protocols. And Izuku Midoriya became infamous. The news showed footage from security cameras. A student standing over a defeated monster covered in blood, looking like death itself. The media didn't have details about his quirk. UA kept that information classified, but they had enough to run with. Mystery student defeats villains. UA, first year shows unprecedented power. Who is Izuku Midoriya? His mother cried when he came home that first day, not from fear or anger, but from relief that he was alive. Izuku hugged her, promised he was fine, and didn't mention that he'd been effectively immortal during the fight. Some things mothers didn't need to know. Back at school, Class 1A treated him differently. There was respect, yes, but also wariness. They'd seen what he could do when pushed. They'd heard the music, seen the green energy, witnessed the impossible healing, and they knew on some instinctive level that Izuku Midoriya was playing a different game than the rest of them. "You're scary, you know that?" Ashido said during lunch a few days later. "Scary how?" "Scary like, you don't seem bothered. You fought a monster designed to kill All Might, and you're just eating lunch like it's Tuesday." "It is Tuesday. You know what I mean?" Izuku considered how to respond. "I'm not scared because I know my limits. I know what I can handle, and I know when to bet big. That thing at the USJ, it was strong, but my fever burned hotter. Simple as that." "Your fever," Tokoyami interjected. "You speak of it like it's a tangible force. Because it is. Fever is passion, drive, the burning need to achieve something. Everyone has it. Most people just don't acknowledge it." Izuku gestured around the cafeteria. "Everyone here got into UA because their fever burned hot enough to pass the entrance exam. The question is whether you can maintain that heat or let it cool off into mediocrity. And yours never cools off? Not yet. Maybe someday, but not today." The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but Izuku noticed the looks from other tables. Students from other classes, teachers, support course kids working on costumes, everyone was aware of him now. Good. Let them watch. Let them wonder. The bigger his reputation grew, the higher the stakes would be, and the higher the stakes, the better his fever would burn. 3 weeks after the USJ attack, UA announced the sports festival. The timing was aggressive. Most schools would have canceled or postponed after a villain attack. But UA wanted to show strength to demonstrate that they wouldn't be intimidated. And more practically, the sports festival was a massive recruitment opportunity for pro heroes and agencies. Canceling would have economic and political consequences. The UA Sports Festival is one of Japan's biggest events, All Might explained during Homeroom. It's broadcast nationally, watched by millions, and attended by every major hero agency. This is your chance to show the world what you can do. Izuku's grin was wolfish, the entire nation watching. Every pro hero in the country paying attention, the highest stakes he'd faced since coming to UA. His fever had never burned hotter. The format is traditional, Midnight explained during the festival's opening ceremony. The R-rated hero stood on a platform overlooking the massive stadium filled with screaming fans. An obstacle course to narrow down the competition, followed by team events, and finally one-on-one battles. Only the best will advance to the final rounds. Thousands of students from all UA courses gathered for the preliminary round. Hero course, support course, general studies, business, everyone had a chance to compete. The obstacle course was 4 kilometers long, filled with traps, obstacles, and robotic enemies. Izuku stood at the starting line, surrounded by competitors, and felt the probability space crystallizing around him. He didn't need his domain for this, just raw speed and rough energy. The starting signal fired. 3,000 students surged forward through the tunnel entrance. Bodies pressed together in the crush, quirks activated in the chaos. Someone was already eliminated from being trampled. Izuku ran along the walls, using rough energy to maintain traction and bypass the crowd entirely. Other students had similar ideas. Todoroki froze the ground. Bakugo used explosions to launch himself forward. Some bird-headed guy from Class 1B flew over the mob. The first obstacle appeared, massive robots from the entrance exam, the same zero-pointers that were supposed to be unbeatable. Todoroki froze one solid and ran past while it was immobilized. Smart, efficient, boring, Bakugo exploded another's legs and used the debris as stepping stones. Aggressive, flashy, predictable. Izuku punched through his robot's chest, tore out its power core, and kept running. Brutal, effective, satisfying. The crowd in the stadium went wild. Present Mike's commentary barely kept up with the action. And that's Midoriya from Class 1A, showing the same destructive power that dominated the entrance exam. The kid's a machine. Second obstacle, the fall, a massive canyon spanned by tight ropes and pillars. Most students had to carefully navigate across. Izuku just jumped, using rough energy bursts to create mid-air platforms and crossed the gap in 3 bounds. Third obstacle, the minefield. Buried explosives covered the final stretch before the stadium. Students had to either detect and avoid them, or tank the damage and push through. Izuku did neither. He deliberately stepped on every mine he encountered, let the explosions propel him forward, and used rough energy to mitigate the actual damage. Each detonation launched him closer to the finish line in a cascade of fire and smoke. He crossed the finish line first. 20 seconds ahead of Todoroki, the stadium erupted. Present Mike lost his mind. Aizawa made dry comments about property damage and recklessness. All Might beamed with pride despite his concern. Izuku stood in the stadium's center, raised his fist to the crowd, and let the funk music play just loud enough for the front rows to hear. 42 students advanced from the preliminary round. The next event was announced: Cavalry Battle. Teams of 4, 1 rider and 3 horses wearing headbands with point values based on preliminary placement. Steal headbands from other teams. Protect your own. Last 15 minutes. Simple concept, complex execution. Izuku's preliminary placement gave him 10 million points. Every team immediately targeted him. "This is going to be interesting," he muttered, and started recruiting. He needed a team that could handle the pressure, mobility, defense, and offense. He approached Uraraka first, 0 gravity for movement. Then Tokoyami, Dark Shadow for defense and area control. Finally, a pink-haired support course student named Hatsume Mei, who'd advanced through clever gadget use. "Why should I team with you?" Hatsume asked. "Everyone's going to target the 10 million points. Because when we win, you'll get national exposure for your inventions. Every hero agency will see your gadgets in action. That's valuable advertising." Her eyes lit up with manic glee. "You're hired! I'm hired! We're a team!" The cavalry battle was chaos. 42 students divided into roughly 10 teams, all converging on Izuku's position immediately. Todoroki's team attacked from the left, Bakugo's team charged from the right. Class 1B teams tried to flank from behind. Uraraka, make us light. Tokoyami, defense. Hatsume, whatever gadgets you've got, use them. They floated above the initial rush. Dark Shadow batted away reaching hands. Hatsume's support items, grappling hooks, flashbangs, electromagnetic shields, created a defensive perimeter that kept most teams at bay. But Todoroki was persistent. His ice created platforms to reach their elevation. Bakugo used explosions to launch his team upward. The battle became 3-dimensional, an aerial combat scenario that the stadium had never witnessed before. "Midoriya," Todoroki called out. "This time, I won't hold back." Fire and ice combined into devastating attacks. Izuku's team dodged, weaved, and used Hatsume's gadgets to maintain distance, but they couldn't avoid forever. Eventually, someone would land a hit, Izuku grinned. Tokoyami dropped Dark Shadow's restraints. But in direct light, do it. Dark Shadow exploded outward and no longer held back by Tokoyami's control. The sentient quirk became a massive void of shadow that struck at anything nearby. Other teams scattered. Even Todoroki's group had to retreat. "That's insane," someone shouted. "He's making his own teammate go berserk." "Calculated risk," Izuku said calmly, and used rough energy to guide Dark Shadow's attacks away from his own team while directing them at opponents. Everything's a gamble if you know the odds. The 15 minutes ended with Izuku's team still holding the 10 million points. They'd lost some smaller value headbands, but retained the big prize. Todoroki's team came in second, Bakugo's team third. A team led by someone named Monoma from Class 1B rounded out fourth. These 16 students advanced to the final event, Tournament Battles. The bracket was displayed on the massive screen. Single elimination, one-on-one combat, no time limits, victory by ring out, knockout, or surrender. Izuku's first match was against a general studies student with a mind control quirk. Dangerous ability, but the student lacked combat training. Izuku won in 30 seconds by closing his eyes, rushing forward using sound to navigate, and delivering a rough energy punch that sent his opponent out of bounds before the mind control could activate. Second match, against Hatsume Mei, who used it as an opportunity to showcase her inventions before immediately surrendering. She never intended to fight. She just wanted the advertising platform. Izuku respected the hustle. Third match, quarterfinals, Ida Tenya. The engine quirk user was fast, disciplined, and fighting for his brother's honor after a recent villain attack had hospitalized Ingenium. Ida's speed created genuine challenges, his recipro burst making him temporarily faster than Izuku could track, but speed meant nothing against overwhelming power. Izuku didn't use his domain, and didn't need to. He just coated his body in rough energy, tanked Ida's fastest attacks, and waited for the recipro to burn out. Then he grabbed the exhausted speedster and gently placed him outside the ring. Your fever burns hot, Ida, but you're fighting for someone else's dream. Until you figure out your own, you'll always be one step behind. Semifinals, Bakugo Katsuki. This was the fight everyone wanted. The two students from Aldera, the delinquent and the prodigy, finally settling whatever grudge had existed between them. Except Izuku didn't have a grudge. He just thought Bakugo was loud and predictable. "I'm going to destroy you, Midoriya!" Bakugo screamed from across the arena. "All your power, all your luck, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be number one." "Sure, Bakugo. Let's see what you've got." The fight was explosive, literally. Bakugo's quirk created devastating attacks that forced even Izuku to take him seriously. Stun grenades, howitzer impacts, AP shots. The blonde had refined his explosion quirk into a versatile arsenal, but versatility lost to absolute power. Izuku weathered the explosion storm, rough energy protecting him from the worst of the heat and concussive force. When Bakugo exhausted his larger attacks, Izuku closed distance and demonstrated the gap between them with pure hand-to-hand combat. No domain, no jackpot, just skill, rough energy, and the experience of a lifetime that shouldn't exist in a 15-year-old. Bakugo landed on his back outside the ring, unconscious from a final rough energy strike that had rattled his brain without causing permanent damage. Izuku offered a hand to help him up once he regained consciousness. Bakugo slapped it away and stormed off. Some people never learned. The finals. Todoroki Shoto. This was the match the entire nation waited for, the two most powerful first years. Ice and fire versus probability and cursed energy. The son of the number 2 hero versus the mysterious gambling quirk user. They stood across from each other in the center of the stadium. Todoroki's left side already frosting over. Izuku's green energy beginning to crackle. "Last time we fought, you held back," Izuku said. "Don't make that mistake again." "I won't. My father is watching. The whole country is watching. I need to prove that I can win with my own power." "Your own power includes the fire, you know. But whatever. Come at me with everything you've got." Todoroki created a massive ice glacier that covered half the arena. Izuku shattered it with a rough energy punch and closed the distance. Todoroki responded with a fire wave that turned the ice into steam. Izuku ran through the superheated vapor, rough energy protecting him, and delivered a combination that forced Todoroki to create ice armor. They traded attacks at a pace that made the previous matches look like warm-ups. Ice and fire created impossible temperature gradients. Rough energy cut through elemental constructs. The arena floor cracked and melted and froze in cycles, but Izuku could feel it. Todoroki was holding back again. Not consciously, maybe, but the fire was weaker than it should be. The psychological block from his father's abuse was limiting his output. "Stop half-assing it," Izuku shouted over the sound of clashing quirks. "You want to reject your father? Fine, but do it by being stronger than him, not by neutering yourself." "You don't understand. I understand that you're scared. Scared of becoming him, scared of proving him right, scared of your own power." Izuku grabbed Todoroki by the collar, let the ice and fire wash over him, and stared into those heterochromatic eyes. But fear is just fever that doesn't know where to point. So point it at me. Burn as hot as you can. Make me take you seriously. Something in Todoroki broke. The left side of his body erupted with flame hot enough to turn sand to glass. The right side created ice dense enough to be bulletproof. And for the first time in his life, Shoto Todoroki used 100% of both quirk aspects simultaneously. The resulting clash of fire and ice created a miniature storm in the stadium. Present Mike's commentary was drowned out by the roar of elements. Spectators in the front rows felt the heat and cold. Cementos created walls to protect the audience, and Izuku laughed with pure joy. "That's it! That's the fever I wanted to see." He didn't use his domain. Todoroki deserved better than that. Instead, Izuku fought with rough energy alone, matching Todoroki's elemental assault with pure, cursed technique mastery. Every punch cut through ice, every kick dispersed fire. His combat instincts, honed across lifetimes, guided him through the elemental chaos. They fought until Todoroki's body couldn't handle the temperature extremes anymore. The backlash from using both sides at full power simultaneously took its toll. His movements slowed. His attacks became less coordinated. Izuku saw the opening and took it, a rough energy palm strike to the solar plexus. Not enough to cause serious damage, but enough to knock the wind out and disrupt quirk control. Todoroki stumbled backward, fire and ice flickering out, and stepped over the boundary line. Todoroki Shoto is out of bounds. The winner is Izuku Midoriya. The stadium erupted. Present Mike screamed himself hoarse. All Might stood and applauded. Even Aizawa looked grudgingly impressed. Izuku helped Todoroki to his feet. Better. Still not perfect, but better. Keep that fever burning, half and half. Todoroki looked at his hands, both of them, and nodded slowly. Thank you. Don't thank me, you did the work. I just gave you the push. The awards ceremony was held immediately after. All Might presented the medals personally, his smile somehow even brighter than usual. Third place, Bakugo Katsuki, who had to be restrained to the podium because he was still furious about losing. Second place, Todoroki Shoto, who accepted his medal with quiet dignity and a new understanding of his own power. First place, Izuku Midoriya, who stood at the top of the podium and looked out at the screaming crowd with satisfaction. The entire nation had watched him fight. Every pro hero knew his name now. The fever had burned bright enough to be seen from orbit. Always bet on Izuku, he muttered and raised his fist to the sky. 1 week after the sports festival, internship offers flooded in. Every major hero agency wanted the tournament winner. All Might suggested Gran Torino, his own former teacher, but Izuku declined. He needed someone who would push him differently. He chose an agency run by a hero named Manual. Not because Manual was powerful or famous, but because the hero operated in Hosu City, and Izuku had heard interesting rumors about vigilante activity in the area. The Stain rumors specifically. Hero Killer Stain had been operating for months, targeting heroes he deemed false. His ideology was extreme. Only All Might represented true heroism. Everyone else was corrupted by money, fame, or selfishness. He crippled or killed heroes who didn't meet his standards. Most students would avoid such a dangerous internship location. Izuku deliberately chose it, because if there was one thing that got his fever burning, it was someone who talked about authenticity and passion. The first 2 days in Hosu were boring. Patrol work, paperwork, standard hero operations. Manual was a decent hero. Water quirk, good rescue capabilities, genuine desire to help people. But he wasn't going to challenge Izuku or push his development. On the third night, Izuku ditched the patrol route and went looking for trouble. He found it in an alley off the main shopping district. 3 bodies on the ground, 2 pro heroes and 1 teenager. The teenager was still alive, paralyzed but conscious, terror in his eyes, as a man in combat gear and a face wrap stood over him with blade drawn, Hero Killer Stain. Another false hero, Stain said, not looking up from his victim. More concerned with rankings than Izuku's rough energy punch sent Stain crashing through a brick wall. That's Ida you're standing over, you ideological piece of shit. Stain extracted himself from the rubble, multiple blades already drawn, blood on his tongue from where Izuku's surprise attack had split his lip. His eyes, fanatical, burning with conviction, fixed on Izuku. You're the tournament winner. Midoriya, I watched your fights. Stain's voice was rough, damaged from years of violence. You fight for the thrill, for the gamble, another false hero playing at... Save the speech. I don't care about your ideology. Izuku walked forward, rough energy crackling with each step. You hurt my classmate. That's all that matters. Stain licked his blade, activating his quirk. Izuku felt the paralysis try to take hold, felt the foreign effect trying to lock his muscles. The automatic reverse curse technique purged it in 2 seconds. Izuku took another step, completely unaffected. Quirk that paralyzes through blood ingestion? Cute, but my body doesn't accept debuffs. Stain's eyes widened fractionally. Impossible. My quirk works on everyone. Not me. Izuku closed the remaining distance and demonstrated exactly why gambling quirk users were terrifying in close combat. Stain was skilled. Years of hero killing had honed his combat abilities to a razor edge. He was faster than most pro heroes, stronger than his build suggested, and his blade work was surgical in precision. None of it mattered. Izuku's rough energy turned every block into a counterattack. His curse technique made his strikes cut deeper than they should. His combat instincts, inherited from Hakari Kinji across Reincarnation, let him predict Stain's movements before they completed. "You talk about false heroes," Izuku said, catching a blade between his fingers and snapping it with rough energy. "But you're the one holding back. You're so focused on who deserves to live that you've forgotten to fight for your own beliefs. I fight for the cleansing of hero society. No, you fight because you're bitter and broken and can't accept that heroes are human." Izuku grabbed Stain by the throat and slammed him against the wall. Heroes who don't bet on themselves are boring. You know what's more boring? Ideologues who kill instead of creating. You want better heroes? Train them. Guide them. Don't murder them in alleys like a coward. Stain tried to stab Izuku through the eye. The blade scraped off rough energy coating his face and broke. His paralysis quirk was useless. His speed was insufficient. His ideology meant nothing against overwhelming power. "You're wrong," Stain gasped, blood dripping from multiple cuts. "Heroes today are corrupt, false, unworthy. Maybe. Probably even. But that's life. People are imperfect. Systems are flawed. The question is whether you rage against it like a child or work to make it better." Izuku released Stain, who collapsed to his knees. "You want to know the difference between you and me? My fever burns for possibility. Yours burns for destruction. Mine builds. Yours only tears down." Sirens approached. Manuel had finally tracked down his missing intern. Pro heroes were converging on the alley. Stain's villain career was over. The hero killer looked up at Izuku, blood and defiance in his eyes. "They'll remember me. My message will spread. Hero society will... Yeah. You'll be a martyr for your cause. People will argue about your ideology. Society will debate hero ethics." Izuku turned away, already bored with the conversation. "Or maybe you'll just be another crazy villain who got caught. 50-50 odds. I'm not betting either way." Manuel burst into the alley, followed by several pro heroes. They found Stain beaten and restrained, Ida paralyzed but alive, 2 pro heroes unconscious but stable, and Izuku standing in the middle of it all looking completely unbothered. "Midoriya! What happened? Are you injured?" "I'm fine." Stain tried to kill Ida. I stopped him. Standard Tuesday. One of the pro heroes, Endeavor, Todoroki's father, studied the scene with calculating eyes. "You defeated the hero killer alone?" He was weaker than expected. All ideology, no substance. Izuku walked over to Ida and checked his condition. The paralysis was already wearing off. "You good, Ida?" Midoriya, you saved me." "Yeah, well, your classmate, that's what we do." Izuku helped him stand. "Also, charging in alone against a serial killer because you're angry about your brother? Stupid. Don't do that again." "I know, I'm sorry. I just felt the fever burning and didn't think it through. I get it. But channel that energy better next time. Use your brain along with your engines." The aftermath was another media circus. Hero killer Stain defeated by a UA first year. Debate about quirk ethics and hero licensing. Stain's manifesto spreading online despite authorities' attempts to suppress it, and Izuku's reputation grew even larger. The media called him the gambling hero, though he hadn't chosen that title. His quirk was classified information, but enough had been seen publicly that speculation ran wild. Probability manipulation, luck augmentation, some kind of berserker state that made him unkillable. All true, in a sense. All incomplete. Back at UA, Class 1A treated him with a mixture of respect and wariness. He'd won the sports festival, defeated the hero killer, saved multiple lives. At 15 years old, Izuku Midoriya had accomplished more than some pro heroes achieved in entire careers, and he was just getting started. "Your fever burns bright, young Midoriya. All Might said during a private conversation after the internship period ended. But I worry about where it might lead you. Where it leads me is up to me, Izuku responded. That's the whole point of betting on yourself. You make your own odds. Just remember that being a hero isn't about power alone. It's about inspiring others, giving them hope, showing them that peace is possible. I know. That's why I fight. Izuku met All Might's eyes. But my way of inspiring people is different from yours. You give them a symbol of peace. I give them a reminder that anyone can win if they bet on themselves hard enough. All Might wanted to argue, wanted to push back against that philosophy. But he'd seen Izuku's results. He'd watched this delinquent student save lives, win tournaments, and defeat villains with a grin on his face. Maybe All Might thought the next generation of heroes didn't need to be like him. Maybe they needed to be themselves. Just be careful, was all he said. Always, Izuku lied, and they both knew it. The semester continued. More training exercises, more villain encounters, more opportunities for Izuku to prove that his fever burned hotter than anyone else's. The final exams approached. Practical tests against the teachers themselves designed to push students to their absolute limits. Izuku was paired with Bakugo against All Might, the symbol of peace at a handicapped 5% of his full power. Two students with powerful quirks but limited experience. An urban training ground with multiple escape routes and combat zones. It should have been a challenging test. It was over in 4 minutes. Izuku and Bakugo didn't coordinate, didn't strategize, didn't work together beyond the bare minimum. But they didn't need to. Bakugo's explosions created chaos and distraction. Izuku's rough energy created openings and opportunities. All Might, even at 5%, was still the strongest hero in Japan. His speed was incredible. His strength was overwhelming. His combat experience was unmatched. But Izuku had fought immortal beings, had battled cursed spirits across lifetimes, had honed his technique against opponents that would make pro heroes weep. He didn't use his domain, didn't activate a jackpot state, just fought with rough cursed energy and pure skill. And when All Might's punch would have connected, Izuku caught it. The shockwave from the collision cracked the pavement in a 50-meter radius. Incredible. All Might laughed, genuine joy in his voice. You've caught my punch. Even at reduced power, that's extraordinary. Yeah, well, Izuku grinned behind his mask. I've had good teachers. Now let's see if you can catch mine. What followed wasn't a spar. It was an exhibition. Izuku pushed All Might to gradually increase his power output from 5% to 10, from 10 to 20. Each escalation brought new challenges, new techniques, new strategies. Bakugo contributed with explosive covering fire, but even he recognized this was primarily Izuku's show. The blonde fought well, used his quirk creatively, and landed several solid hits. But the main event was Izuku trading blows with the symbol of peace. At 25% of his power, All Might finally managed to land a clean hit. The Detroit Smash sent Izuku cratering into a building facade. The impact should have broken bones, should have ended the fight. Izuku walked out of the rubble, laughing. Now that's what I'm talking about! Again! They clashed again and again. Power against power, technique against technique. The training ground was destroyed. Observation cameras were shattered. The test monitoring equipment couldn't track their movements. And then the time limit expired. All Might stood in the center of the devastation, barely winded, grinning like a madman. Bakugo sat against a broken wall, explosions finally exhausted, looking stunned. And Izuku stood across from the symbol of peace, rough energy still crackling, fever still burning. You pass, All Might declared. Both of you. Exceptional work. That was just 25%? Izuku asked. Man, I want to fight you at full power someday. Someday, perhaps, when you're ready. I'm ready now. No, All Might said seriously, his smile fading slightly. You're not. You're incredibly powerful, young Midoriya, but power alone doesn't make you ready for everything. Experience, wisdom, understanding, those take time. Izuku wanted to argue, wanted to push back, but he recognized truth when he heard it. He wasn't Hakari Kinji, not completely. He had the power, the technique, the fever, but he was still 15, still learning, still growing. Fine, he conceded, but when I am ready, we're doing this for real. It's a promise. The final exams concluded. Class 1A had performed admirably. Most teams passed their teacher matchups, though some required more creative solutions than others. The semester was ending, summer break approaching, and UA had plans for a training camp in the mountains. Izuku received a letter from an unknown sender. Inside was a simple message: "Your fever burns bright. Others have noticed. Be ready." No signature, no return address, just a warning. Izuku burned the letter and smiled. Threats meant someone thought he was worth threatening. Warnings meant someone considered him dangerous. Both were compliments in their own way. Whatever was coming, he'd handle it, because that's what he did. He bet on himself, and he always won. The semester ended with a class party. Kirishima organized it, Ashido provided music, Sato baked desserts. Class 1A gathered in the common room of their dormitory, a new security measure implemented after the USJ attack, and celebrated their survival of first semester. Izuku participated, but his mind was elsewhere, thinking about the letter, about the upcoming training camp, about whatever threats were gathering in the shadows. "You okay?" Uraraka asked, appearing beside him with a cup of punch. "You seem distracted. Just thinking about next semester, things are going to get more intense. More intense than fighting the hero killer? Way more intense. The USJ attack wasn't random. Neither was Stain operating in Hosu during our internships. Someone's making moves and we're going to be caught in it. That's concerning. That's exciting." Izuku's grin was sharp. "I love it when the stakes get higher. Makes the fever burn hotter." Uraraka studied him for a moment. "Mish, you really do love the danger, don't you? It's not about being a hero for you. It's about the thrill. Being a hero is the thrill. Saving people, fighting villains, pushing my limits. That's what makes life worth living. Without the fever, without the gamble, what's the point? The point is helping people. I do help people. I'm just honest about enjoying it." Izuku took a sip of his drink. "Most heroes pretend they don't love the rush, don't get addicted to the adrenaline. I'm just not a hypocrite about it." That's actually kind of refreshing. Brutally honest, but refreshing. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their classmates celebrate. Bakugo was arm wrestling Kirishima. Todoroki was attempting to understand a card game Kaminari was explaining. Ida was lecturing someone about proper party etiquette, normal teenage stuff, simple, peaceful, boring. Izuku's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He checked the message. "Summer training camp. Mountain facility. Third night. Be ready to bet everything." He deleted the message and pocketed his phone. Someone was definitely planning something. Someone knew about the training camp schedule. Someone wanted him specifically to know about it. Good. Let them come. Let them bring their best. He'd show them what happens when you bet against Izuku Midoriya. The party continued into the night. Music played, students laughed, and for a brief moment, Class 1A was just a group of teenagers enjoying their youth. But Izuku stood apart, fever burning in his chest, rough energy crackling at his fingertips, and smiled at the gathering storm, because the biggest gamble of his life was about to begin, and he couldn't wait to see how the odds played out. "Always bet on Izuku," he whispered to the night, and the funk music hummed in agreement. The summer training camp announcement came 3 days before semester break. Aizawa distributed permission forms with his usual enthusiasm, which is to say, none whatsoever. "This is mandatory for anyone serious about being a hero," he droned. "The Wild Wild Pussycats will be supervising. Location is classified for security reasons. Pack for a week in the mountains. Don't do anything stupid before then." His eyes lingered on Izuku for that last part. Izuku filled out his form while thinking about the mysterious messages. 2 warnings now about the training camp. Someone knew the schedule, knew he'd be there, and wanted him specifically prepared. The question was whether they were enemy or ally, not that it mattered much. Either way, it would be interesting. The 3 days passed in a blur of final assignments and packing. Izuku's mother fussed over his equipment, made him promise to be careful, and cried a little when he left. She'd been crying more since the sports festival, since the hero killer incident, since every time her son's face appeared on the news, doing something that should have killed him. "I'll be fine, Mom. It's just training. That's what worries me," she said, but kissed his forehead and let him go. The bus ride to the training camp was predictably chaotic. Bakugo was arguing with Kaminari about something meaningless. Ashido was playing music too loud. Ida was trying to enforce bus safety protocols that everyone ignored. Normal teenage stuff. Izuku sat in the back watching the mountain scenery pass and felt his fever building. Something was coming. He could taste it in the air, feel it in the probability space around him. The stakes were about to get higher. Good. The bus stopped in a clearing surrounded by forest. The wild, wild pussycats, 4 pro heroes in cat-themed costumes, greeted them with varying levels of enthusiasm. Mandalay was professional, Pixie Bob was hyperactive, Ragdoll was friendly, Tiger was quietly intimidating. "Welcome to your week of hell," Pixie Bob announced. "Your first task is to reach the facility at the base of that mountain by noon tomorrow." She pointed at a mountain that looked very far away. "That's 12 hours from now," someone calculated. "Yep, better start moving." "But we're still on the bus." Pixie Bob's earth manipulation quirk launched the entire class off the cliff edge and into the forest below. Students screamed, quirks activated in panic, and Izuku laughed as he fell because, of course, the training started immediately. He landed on rough energy platforms, absorbing the impact easily. Around him, classmates crashed through trees or created ice slides or used explosion propulsion. Everyone made it down safely, if not gracefully. That was reckless and dangerous. Ida shouted up at the pussycats. "That's hero work, kiddo," Pixie Bob called back. "Now start walking. The forest is full of earth beasts I created. Defeat them or go around them. Your choice." The first beast appeared within minutes, a massive dirt golem shaped like a bear. It roared and charged at the scattered students. Most ran. Todoroki froze it. Bakugo exploded it. Izuku punched through its head with casual rough energy and kept walking. The 12-hour trek became a combat gauntlet. Earth beasts of various sizes and shapes attacked constantly. Some students struggled, some excelled. Izuku barely paid attention, his mind elsewhere, planning for whatever threat the mysterious messages had warned about. They reached the facility at sunset, 6 hours late but all accounted for. The pussycats seemed pleased despite the delay. Not bad for day one. Now get inside, eat dinner, and prepare for tomorrow's training. The facility was a large compound with dormitories, training grounds, and a main building. A small child, maybe 5 years old, stood on the main building's steps, glaring at everyone with red eyes. "This is my nephew, Kota," Mandalay introduced. "He's staying with us during your training. Be nice to him." Kota looked at the students with pure contempt. "Heroes are stupid. You're all going to die doing stupid things." Most students were taken aback by the child's hostility. Izuku just studied him with interest. Trauma, probably. Loss of parents, likely. The kid's fever had been extinguished by tragedy, leaving only ashes and bitterness. Sad. But fixable. Dinner was chaos. Exhausted students devouring food, prepared by the pussycat's support staff. Conversations ranged from complaining about the trek to speculating about tomorrow's training. Izuku ate in silence, watching Kota watch them from a corner. The child's expression a mixture of disgust and something that might have been longing. After dinner, Izuku found Kota on the facility's outer wall, staring at the forest. "Heroes killed your parents," Izuku said without preamble. "Or they died being heroes. Which one?" Kota spun around, startled and angry. "Go away! I don't want to talk to you hero wannabes." "Wasn't asking to talk, just stating facts." Izuku sat on the wall next to him. "You hate heroes because they took your family. Fair enough. Hate's a valid fever, just not a productive one. What are you talking about?" "Fever. The thing that makes you get up in the morning. The passion that drives you forward. Everyone's got one. Yours is hate right now, but that's temporary. Eventually, you'll find something worth burning for that isn't just anger." Kota stared at him. "You're weird." "Yeah, I get that a lot." Izuku stood and stretched. "But think about it. Your parents bet on being heroes. Maybe they lost that bet, but they made it because they thought something was worth the risk. Honor that, don't spit on it." He walked away, leaving Kota confused and thinking. Seeds planted. The rest was up to the kid. The first full training day was brutal. The Pussycats regiment focused on pushing quirks beyond normal limits. Each student had personalized training based on their quirks' weaknesses. Bakugo was submerged in boiling water to force more explosive sweat production. Todoroki alternated between extreme temperatures to balance his ice and fire. Tokoyami fought Dark Shadow in broad daylight. Everyone suffered in their own special way. Izuku's training was simple. Use rough energy continuously for 8 hours without stopping. "Your quirk seems to have 2 modes, Pixie Bob explained. Normal usage and that jackpot state. We're strengthening your base form so you don't rely on the jackpot as a crutch." She didn't know about the domain expansion, the binding vows, the cursed technique origins. She thought jackpot was just a quirk. Simpler that way, 8 hours of constant rough energy output was exhausting in ways that jackpot mode wasn't. During jackpot, infinite cursed energy made everything effortless. In base form, he had to carefully manage his reserves, maintain efficient flow, and push his limits without breaking. By hour 6, Izuku's hands were shaking. By hour 7, his vision was blurring. By hour 8, he collapsed from exhaustion. "Good," Pixie Bob declared. "That's your limit. Tomorrow, we'll push it to 9 hours." Izuku groaned from the ground. This was horrible. He loved it. The second night, students were allowed to use the facility's hot springs to recover. Izuku soaked in the outdoor bath, letting the heat work out the muscle fatigue, and thought about his progress. His base form was definitely getting stronger. The rough energy came more naturally now, required less conscious effort to maintain. Eventually, he might not need to rely on jackpot for standard fights. Save it for the real threats, but that assumed he'd face real threats. UA was secure. The training camp was isolated. What were the odds that the fever spiked in his chest? Izuku's eyes snapped open. Probability space was crystallizing around him unbidden. Something was happening. Something dangerous. Something. Black smoke erupted across the forest. Multiple sources, spreading fast. The facility's alarm systems blared to life. Mandalay's telepathic voice echoed in everyone's minds. "Villain attack. Students returned to the facility immediately. This is not a drill." Izuku was moving before the message finished. Out of the hot spring into his clothes, rough energy already crackling. The mysterious warnings had been right. Third night. Someone had bet against UA's security. Big mistake. The forest was chaos. Villains were scattered throughout, using the smoke as cover. Students were separated, confused, under attack. Izuku ran toward the nearest sounds of combat, fever burning hotter with each step. He found Todoroki and Shoji fighting a villain who manipulated teeth, some kind of grotesque dental quirk. Izuku's rough energy punch removed the villain from consciousness before introductions could be made. "Midoriya, where did you come from?" "Hot spring. What's the situation?" "Unknown number of villains. Multiple quirks. Mandalay said they're targeting someone specifically, but we don't know who." Todoroki created ice barriers as more smoke approached. "We need to protect the other students." "You do that. I'm hunting." Izuku's grin was feral. "Someone organized this attack. Someone planned it. I want to meet them." "That's reckless. That's the point." Izuku ran deeper into the forest, leaving Todoroki to coordinate defenses. His fever guided him toward the strongest sources of malice, the highest concentrations of hostile intent. He found Dabi first. The patchwork villain was burning through the forest with blue flames, creating chaos and destruction without apparent purpose. When he saw Izuku, his scarred face twisted into something resembling a smile. Well, the tournament winner. Heard about you, Jackpot. Supposed to be tough." "Supposed to be?" Izuku's rough energy flared. "Let's test that theory." Dabi's flames were hot enough to cremate bodies instantly. Normal heroes would need serious fire resistance to survive. Izuku just coated himself in rough energy and walked through the inferno like it was a warm breeze. What the? Izuku's punch caught Dabi in the ribs, rough energy cutting through his fire resistance. The villain flew back, crashed through a tree, and scrambled to his feet with blood on his lips. "Okay, so you can hit hard. How about this?" The flames intensified, blue shifting toward white, heat that could melt steel, heat that warped the air itself. Dabi was pushing his quirk to dangerous levels, burning himself to increase output. Izuku appreciated the fever. Burning yourself to burn hotter, that was commitment. But it wasn't enough. He closed the distance again, each step cratering the superheated ground. Dabi tried to create flame walls, tried to increase the heat, tried everything. Izuku shattered each defense with rough energy that cut through thermal dynamics like they were suggestions. "You're insane," Dabi gasped, backing away. "You're just walking through. Your flames are hot. My energy is hotter." Izuku grabbed Dabi by the throat. "Now tell me who organized this attack before I get bored." "Go to hell." "Already there. It's called UA." Izuku tightened his grip. "Who sent you?" Dabi's answer was a point-blank flame blast to Izuku's face. The rough energy coating absorbed most of it, but the sheer heat still hurt. Izuku's grip loosened for 1 second. Dabi created a flame smokescreen and ran. Coward! Izuku shouted after him, but didn't pursue. Other students needed protection. He could hunt Dabi later. He found Toga next. The blonde girl with a knife fixation was chasing after Uraraka. When she saw Izuku, her eyes lit up with disturbing enthusiasm. Izu-chan, I saw you at the sports festival. You're so cool when you're covered in blood. Can I have some of yours? Pass. Izuku's rough energy flared protectively. Uraraka, you good? I'm fine. She's just really creepy. I'm not creepy. I'm in love, Toga pouted. Fighting makes people beautiful. Don't you think so, Izu-chan? When you beat that ice boy, you look so happy. I want to see that face again. She lunged with her knife. Izuku caught her wrist, twisted it until she dropped the blade, and threw her into a tree hard enough to knock her unconscious. Stay with the other students, Izuku told Uraraka. Something bigger is happening. I can feel it. What are you going to do? Find out what? He ran toward the mountain's base where Kota's secret hideout was located. The kid liked to go there to be alone, away from the heroes he hated. If villains were targeting students, an isolated child would be. The scream confirmed his fears. Izuku arrived at the cliffside clearing to find Kota cornered by a massive man with muscle fibers exposed across his body. The villain was enormous, easily 2 meters tall, with a manic grin and eyes that reflected pure violence. Found a brat! The muscular villain laughed. Gonna crush you like your hero parents got crushed. Kota was frozen in terror. The villain raised his fist. Izuku moved. His rough energy punch intercepted the villain's strike mid-swing. The collision created a shockwave that cracked the cliff face. Both fighters were thrown back by the force. Izuku landed between Kota and the villain, rough energy crackling across his body like green lightning. Kid, get behind me. You're that hero student. Not a hero yet, but I'm someone who bets on himself. And right now, I'm betting I can beat this meat puppet into unconsciousness before he touches you. The muscular villain laughed, delighted. Meat puppet? That's funny. I'm muscular. My quirk lets me build muscle fibers infinitely. The more I fight, the stronger I get. And you, he studied Izuku with manic glee, you look like you'll make me really strong. Muscle fibers erupted across Muscular's body, layering over each other in grotesque patterns. His already massive frame swelled larger, reinforced by impossible amounts of biomass. He was transforming himself into a living weapon, each muscle layer adding to his offensive and defensive power. Perfect. This was exactly the kind of high-stakes fight that made Izuku's fever burn hottest. Kota. Watch carefully. Izuku's grin was visible even in the darkness. I'm about to show you what it means to bet everything on yourself. He expanded his domain. Domain expansion. Idle death gamble. The cliffside clearing transformed instantly. Train station environment overlaid reality. Pachinko indicators appeared. Romance manga panels flashed across invisible screens. The massive pachinko machine manifested, already beginning to spin. Muscular looked around in confusion. What the hell is this? My gamble, Izuku said. For the next 4 minutes and 11 seconds, you're playing by my rules. The domain forced information into Muscular's brain. Game mechanics, probability matrices, jackpot conditions. The villain's expression shifted from confusion to anger to anticipation. So, it's a game? Fine, I'll crush you before your timer runs out. He charged, muscle fibers rippling with each step. His punch carried enough force to demolish a building. Izuku dodged, letting the strike crater the ground, and watched the pachinko machine. First spin, normal attempt. 1 in 239 odds, the balls dropped. Didn't align. Miss Muscular's second punch connected with Izuku's ribs. The rough energy absorbed some impact, but the sheer power still sent him flying. He crashed through the train station's illusory wall and hit the real cliff face hard enough to crack stone. Come on, is that all? You talked big, but you're just another weak hero. Izuku stood, blood dripping from his mouth, and grinned. Just getting warmed up. Second spin, gold attempt. Probability enhanced from first failure. Third spin, pseudo spin, consecutive combat boosting odds. The indicators aligned. 3 identical numbers. Jackpot. Admiring You erupted across the mountainside, mixing with the funk music that had become Izuku's signature. Green cursed energy exploded outward, unlimited and infinite, and the automatic reverse curse technique activated in his core. The cracked ribs healed. The split lip sealed, the bruises faded. In seconds, Izuku was restored to perfect condition, and his fever had never burned hotter. 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Izuku said, his voice carrying over the music. "You've got that long to make me take you seriously. Better make it count." What followed was the most brutal fight the training camp had ever witnessed. Muscular's punch tore through Izuku's stomach. The hole regenerated before blood could finish spilling. Izuku's counterpunch, charged with unlimited rough energy, shredded through muscle fibers that should have been impenetrable. Muscular regenerated too, but slower. They traded blows at speeds that turned them into blurs. Each of Izuku's attacks carried that serrated edge that bypassed pure physical defense. Each of Muscular's attacks would have killed a normal human instantly. But Izuku wasn't normal. For 4 minutes and 11 seconds, he was unkillable. More muscles. Muscular screamed, building additional layers. More power! His form swelled grotesquely, muscle fibers covering even his face, transforming him into a biomass horror. His strikes carried enough force to create shockwaves. His durability let him tank hits that should have killed him. Izuku loved it. That's the spirit! Bet everything on your power. Build higher. Burn hotter. He caught Muscular's fist mid-swing, let the villain's other hand tear off his arm, regenerated it instantly while delivering a rough energy headbutt that cracked Muscular's reinforced skull. Koda watched from behind a boulder, eyes wide, witnessing something that would change his understanding of heroes forever. This wasn't the clean, professional heroism shown on TV. This was raw, violent, passionate combat between two people who bet everything on their own strength. Timer. 3 minutes remaining. Muscular was slowing down. The constant muscle generation was taking its toll. Each layer required energy, nutrients, oxygen. He was burning through his body's resources faster than he could replenish them. Izuku was just getting started. Unlimited cursed energy meant no fatigue, no limits, no hesitation. "What are you?" Muscular gasped. "This isn't a quirk. You're a monster. I'm someone who bets on myself." Izuku's rough energy coated his entire body now, serrated and sharp. "And right now, I'm betting I can tear through every muscle fiber you've built before my timer runs out." Timer. 2 minutes remaining. The assault intensified. Izuku abandoned defense entirely. Why dodge when he could regenerate? Every attack was offense. Every movement was aggression. His rough energy strikes stacked up faster than Muscular could rebuild. Limbs were severed. Muscle fiber was shredded. The grotesque armor that Muscular had built was systematically dismantled by a 15-year-old boy with infinite energy and an unkillable body. "I won't lose," Muscular screamed. "I won't lose to some brat. I'm the strongest. Izuku grabbed him by what remained of his face and drove him into the ground with enough force to crack the entire cliff. "You're betting on being the strongest. I'm betting on being the hungriest. Guess which fever burns hotter." Timer. 1 minute remaining. Muscular was broken. Still alive, still breathing, but combat ineffective. His muscle fibers had been torn apart faster than they could regenerate. His body was failing from overuse. His consciousness was fading. Izuku stood over him, chest heaving not from exhaustion but from pure adrenaline, covered in blood, both his own and Muscular's, and felt the jackpot timer counting down. 30 seconds. 20. 10. The music faded. The unlimited energy receded. The automatic regeneration stopped. The domain dissolved back into normal reality, and Izuku remained standing, victorious, whole. Koda emerged from his hiding spot, staring at Izuku like he'd seen a god. You saved me." "Yeah," Izuku stretched, working out the post-jackpot stiffness. "That's what heroes do. We bet on other people's lives being worth our own risk. But you're covered in blood. You almost died. Multiple times. I saw. Almost doesn't count. Either you win the bet or you don't." Izuku ruffled Koda's hair. "Your parents bet on being heroes. They lost that specific bet, but they won the larger one. They saved people. They made a difference. And you get to carry that forward." Koda's eyes filled with tears. "I thought heroes were stupid. Some are. Most are just human. But being human doesn't mean you can't bet big." Izuku picked up the unconscious Muscular with rough energy assistance. "Come on. Let's get you back to Mandalay before more villains show up." They made it halfway back to the facility before the next catastrophe struck. Mr. Compress, a villain in a mask and top hat, appeared from nowhere, using his compression quirk to capture students into marble-sized spheres. He'd already gotten 2, a student from Class 1B and Bakugo. Todoroki shouted, trying to freeze Compress, but missing as the villain dodged. Izuku dropped Muscular and sprinted toward Compress, rough energy already crackling, but the theatrical villain was prepared. Apologies, young Midoriya. Your reputation precedes you. I'll be taking my prizes and leaving. A portal opened, purple mist, the same warp quirk from the USJ attack. Kurogiri, the bar villain from before. This was coordinated. Planned. They'd specifically come for students. Izuku lunged, trying to disrupt the portal with rough energy. For a moment, it seemed to work. The warp flickered, destabilized. But Kurogiri adjusted, reinforced the portal, and Mr. Compress jumped through with his captured students. The portal closed before Izuku could follow. Silence fell over the forest. The villain attack was over. They'd lost. Izuku stood in the clearing, fists clenched, rough energy crackling uselessly around him. His fever burned with pure frustration. He'd won against Muscular, dominated completely, hit the jackpot and emerged victorious, but he'd lost the larger battle. Bakugo was gone, taken by villains, kidnapped on Izuku's watch. My fever wasn't hot enough, he muttered. I should have bet everything from the start, should have hunted down every villain instead of just reacting. Should have... Midoriya, Todoroki's hand on his shoulder. We'll get him back. How? We don't know where they took him, don't know who organized this, don't know anything except that I wasn't strong enough when it mattered. It was the first time since Reincarnation that Izuku had felt powerless. The jackpot had made him unkillable for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. But it couldn't make him omniscient. Couldn't make him in 2 places at once. Couldn't prevent kidnapping when he wasn't there to stop it. The limitations of his power had never felt more frustrating. The aftermath of the training camp attack was chaos. Pro heroes arrived too late. Police investigated the scene, students were counted, injuries were assessed, and the grim reality settled in. 2 students kidnapped, multiple injured, 1 facility destroyed, and 0 villains captured, besides Muscular. The media had a field day. UA's security was questioned again. Hero Society's effectiveness was debated. All Might made public statements promising rescue operations. And Izuku Midoriya sat in his hospital room, staring at his hands and felt his fever burning colder than it ever had before. Todoroki, Ida, Kirishima, and Momo visited him on the 2nd day of recovery. They found him awake, alone, and radiating frustration. We're going after Bakugo, Kirishima announced without preamble. The pros are too slow. We're taking matters into our own hands. That's against UA policy, Ida said automatically, then continued. But I'm coming anyway. We've tracked the League of Villains to a bar in Kamino Ward, Momo added. We need your power, Midoriya. Izuku looked up at them. You understand what you're asking? We'd be breaking laws, violating hero protocols, risking our licenses before we've even graduated. We understand, Todoroki said quietly, but Bakugo would do the same for any of us, even you. Especially me, Izuku corrected. Bakugo hates me, but he's still my classmate, still someone whose fever burns hot enough to matter. He stood, rough energy already beginning to crackle. When do we leave? The plan was simple in concept, complicated in execution. Momo used her wealthy family's resources to track villain communications. Todoroki leveraged his father's hero connections for location data. Ida provided tactical planning. Kirishima provided enthusiasm. And Izuku provided the overwhelming force that would make everything else possible. They would infiltrate Kamino Ward, locate the League's hideout, extract Bakugo, and escape before pro heroes, who were also planning a raid, could intervene. Timing was critical. Coordination was essential. Luck would need to be on their side. Good thing Izuku specialized in luck. The night before the rescue operation, Izuku received another anonymous message. Tomorrow, Kamino Ward, All for One will be there. Don't fight him. You're not ready. Extract Bakugo and run. He deleted the message. Whoever his mysterious informant was, they were right. All for One, the villain who'd given Shigaraki multiple quirks, who'd fought All Might to a stalemate before, who was supposedly the ultimate evil, was beyond Izuku's current capabilities. But extraction didn't require fighting. It required speed, precision, and a little bit of gambling. Izuku could manage that. Kamino Ward at night was a mixture of legitimate businesses and underground operations. The villain bar was disguised as a normal establishment in a commercial district. Pro heroes were already staging nearby, preparing for their own assault. Izuku's group moved separately using civilian disguises and scattered approach vectors. They converged 3 blocks from the target, coordinating via encrypted phones. Heroes are moving in 10 minutes, Momo reported. We need to time our extraction for maximum chaos. I can create a distraction with ice, Todoroki offered. No. Izuku shook his head. We go in quiet. Grab Bakugo. Get out. No fighting unless absolutely necessary. Since when do you advocate for stealth? Since fighting all for one would be a bad bet, and I don't make bad bets. The bar's exterior was unremarkable. Inside, through Momo's surveillance equipment, they could see several villains and 1 restrained student. Bakugo was conscious, angry, and completely uncooperative with his captors. Typical. Kurogiri will warp them away the moment pros attack, Kirishima observed. How do we prevent that? We don't. We use it. Izuku grinned. When the heroes raid, Kurogiri will try to evacuate everyone through portals. That's when we grab Bakugo mid-warp and pull him through to our side. That's insane. The timing would need to be perfect. Good thing I can manipulate probability. Before they could debate further, the pro-hero raid began. Mount Lady grew to giant size. Gran Torino burst through the walls. Edgeshot infiltrated through ventilation. Best Jeanist controlled fabric and clothing. The raid was overwhelming, professional, and exactly what Izuku's group needed. Chaos erupted inside the bar. Villains scattered. Kurogiri activated his warp quirk, trying to evacuate. Black portals opened across the space. Izuku made his move. He didn't expand his domain. Too slow, too visible. Instead, he used pure rough energy to punch through the bar's exterior wall at the exact moment Kurogiri's portal opened near Bakugo. His timing was perfect. Guided by instinct and probability sense, his hand shot through the portal, grabbed Bakugo by the collar, and pulled. For 1 suspended second, Izuku was connected to both sides of the warp. His body in the street, his arm in the bar. He felt Kurogiri trying to close the portal, felt Bakugo resisting being pulled, felt the entire probability space collapsing around the rescue attempt. Then rough energy surged, disrupting Kurogiri's control just enough, and Bakugo tumbled through the portal into Kamino Ward Street. What Deku? What are you doing here? Rescuing your angry ass. You're welcome. The portal closed. Inside the bar, villains were being subdued by pro-heroes. Outside, Izuku's group had successfully extracted their classmate. Mission accomplished. Except it wasn't over. The air pressure changed. Massive, overwhelming presence materialized in the commercial district center. A man, if he could be called that, wearing a business suit and a face that seemed composed of scar tissue and malice, all for one had arrived. Tamura, the villain's voice carried across the entire district. I'm disappointed. You let students infiltrate your hideout. From the ruined bar, Shigaraki's voice responded, Master, these heroes are irrelevant, except for one. All for one's eyeless gaze somehow fixed on Izuku, the gambling boy, Izuku Midoriya. I've heard interesting things about your quirk. It's not quite a quirk, is it? Something older, something foreign. Izuku's fever spiked in his chest. This was bad. All for one could sense the curse technique's nature, could feel that it wasn't from this world. Run, Izuku told his classmates. Right now, get Bakugo away from here. We're not leaving you. I said run. All for one moved. One moment he was standing in the district center. The next he was in front of Izuku, hand extended toward his face. An explosion of wind pressure sent Izuku flying backward through a building. The impact should have killed him, would have killed any normal person. Izuku's rough energy absorbed most of it, but he still felt ribs crack. Interesting. You survived that. Most would have been paste. All for one approached slowly, deliberately. Let's see what other surprises you have. Multiple quirks activated simultaneously. Air pressure, forced activation, kinetic manipulation. All for one was using stolen powers in combination, creating attacks that no single quirk could produce. Izuku tried to expand his domain. The space began crystallizing. All for one's hand touched his chest. Forced quirk activation. Izuku felt his cursed energy surge uncontrollably. Not jackpot activation, something worse. The technique was being forcibly triggered without proper conditions. The domain tried to expand but collapsed immediately. Rough energy erupted in chaotic bursts that damaged Izuku as much as anything else. Fascinating. Your quirk resists my activation attempts. It really isn't a quirk factor, is it? Something else entirely. I wonder if I can steal it. All for One's palm pressed against Izuku's chest. The sensation was horrific. Something trying to rip the curse technique directly from his soul, trying to extract what wasn't meant to be extracted. It failed. Cursed energy wasn't a quirk factor that could be stolen. It was fundamental, woven into Izuku's reincarnated existence, but All for One didn't need to steal it. He just needed to kill Izuku for being an anomaly. The killing blow was coming. Izuku could feel it in the probability space. Death odds were approaching 100%. His fever was burning desperately, but finding no path forward, and then lightning struck. All Might arrived. The symbol of peace crashed into All for One like a meteor, sending the ancient villain flying across Kamino Ward. The impact created a crater. Buildings shook. Civilians who hadn't evacuated finally ran. Izuku Midoriya! All Might's voice carried over the devastation. Fall back, this is my fight. All for One stood from the rubble, dusting off his suit. Toshinori, right on time. I was hoping you'd come. All for One, this ends today. Yes, it does. What followed was a battle that redefined what overwhelming power meant in hero society. All Might and All for One had fought before, years ago in a battle that had crippled both of them. All Might had lost his stomach and most of his power. All for One had lost his face and was presumed dead. Now they fought again, both diminished but still the two strongest beings in Japan. Izuku's group retreated to a safe distance, watching the clash of titans. Gran Torino evacuated them further. Other pro-heroes created barriers to protect civilians. And in the center of Kamino Ward, two legends tried to kill each other. All for One's combination quirks created impossible attacks, air cannons, force multiplication, regeneration. He was a walking arsenal of stolen powers, All Might's one for all. The quirk passed down through generations, the power that had defeated All for One before, pushed beyond its limits. Each punch carried the weight of his predecessor's hopes. Each smile promised that peace would prevail. I want to help him, Izuku said, rough energy crackling around his fists. I can hit a jackpot right now. Give All Might 4 minutes and 11 seconds of backup. Bakugo grabbed his shoulder. Don't be stupid. This is his bet to make. Izuku turned, surprised. Bakugo almost never said anything that made sense. That symbol of peace bullshit? Bakugo continued. That's his fever, his gamble. You jumping in would just ruin it, so shut up and watch. It was good advice. Izuku hated that it came from Bakugo, but it was still good advice, so he watched. All Might pushed beyond his limits. Used the embers of One for All in a body that was falling apart. His muscular form was fading, his time limit already exceeded. But he smiled anyway because that's what the symbol of peace did. United States of Smash. The final blow sent All for One flying into the stratosphere. The ancient villain didn't come back down. He was defeated, captured by a police airship with quirk restraints. All Might stood in the crater, victorious, and then his muscular form evaporated. What remained was a skeletal man with sunken eyes and blood dripping from his mouth. The symbol of peace, revealed in his true form to millions watching on news cameras, Toshinori Yagi raised a trembling hand and pointed at the camera. I am here, he said, and collapsed. The aftermath of Kamino Ward changed everything. All Might survived, but retired immediately. His weakened form was public knowledge now. The symbol of peace was gone, leaving a vacuum in hero society that no one could fill. Crime rates spiked across Japan. Villains who'd been too afraid to act while All Might was active suddenly became bold. Hero agencies were overwhelmed. The careful balance that had maintained peace for decades collapsed in weeks, and Izuku Midoriya realized that betting on himself wasn't enough anymore. He needed to bet on becoming something more. The provisional hero license exam came 2 months after Kamino Ward. UA students who'd proven themselves capable were allowed to attempt the exam early, bypassing normal age restrictions. Izuku, Todoroki, Bakugo, and most of Class 1A participated. The exam's first phase was a mass elimination battle. 150 students from various schools, all competing for the 43 available licenses. The rules were simple. Hit other students with balls that would light up their targets, making them eliminated. Last 43 standing passed. Izuku's approach was tactical. He didn't use jackpot mode. That would be overkill and waste energy. Instead, he relied on rough cursed energy and pure combat skill. He targeted exposed students with precise throws, used environment to his advantage, avoided unnecessary conflicts. Within 15 minutes, he'd eliminated 12 competitors and secured 6 confirmation targets. Other students recognized him from the sports festival and deliberately avoided engagement. His reputation preceded him. The gambling hero who defeated Todoroki, the student who'd fought the hero killer, the boy who'd extracted Bakugo from under pro heroes' noses. Nobody wanted to test their luck against Jackpot. He advanced to the second phase with a high score, along with most of Class 1A. The second phase was different, a rescue operation simulation with actors playing victims. This was where Izuku struggled. The Heroes Grid Committee judges evaluated not just rescue capability, but motivation and demeanor. They watched how students interacted with victims, how they prioritized, how they showed compassion. Izuku was efficient, methodical, effective, but his bedside manner was terrible. "Why do you want to be a hero?" An elderly actress asked while he was extracting her from rubble. Izuku paused. The answer that came to mind was, "Because the thrill makes my fever burn." But he suspected that wasn't what she wanted to hear. "Because everyone deserves a chance to bet on themselves," he said instead. "And heroes are the ones who make that possible. We create opportunities, protect possibilities, give people the freedom to chase their own fever." The actress smiled. "That's a good answer, young man." He passed the exam, received his provisional hero license, became the gambling hero, Jackpot officially. But the title felt hollow. All Might had retired. Society was crumbling. And Izuku was just one student with one powerful quirk. How was that supposed to fix anything? The answer came during his internship with Sir Night-Eye. Sir Night-Eye was All Might's former sidekick, a hero with the foresight quirk that let him see the future. He was analytical, strict, and deeply concerned about the post-All Might world. "You have immense power," Night-Eye said during their first meeting. "But power alone doesn't make you a hero. I've seen many possible futures involving you, some good, many catastrophic. Your gambling approach to heroism is reckless. Gambling isn't reckless if you know the odds. You manipulate probability, yes, but you can't manipulate fate. I've seen your future, Midoriya. Would you like to know what I saw?" Izuku considered. Knowing the future would remove uncertainty, remove the gamble, make everything boring. "No, I'd rather bet on making my own future." Night-Eye's stern expression cracked slightly. That's what All Might would have said. During the internship, Izuku met Mirio Tagada, Night-Eye's current student and third year at UA. Mirio's permeation quirk let him phase through solid matter, and his combat skills were exceptional. "You're the famous Jackpot." Mirio's perpetual smile was infectious. "I've heard about you. Night-Eye says you're going to either save the world or destroy it." He said that? Paraphrasing. "But yeah, he's worried about you. Says your fever burns too hot, whatever that means." They sparred. Izuku discovered that Mirio's permeation was tricky. The phasing made him nearly impossible to hit, and his counterattacks came from unexpected angles. But rough energy could disrupt the quirk's activation if timed perfectly. The spar ended in a draw. Both fighters were impressed with each other. "You're strong," Mirio said, "but strength alone won't save everyone. Sometimes you need to smile even when you're scared. Make people believe everything will be okay." That's All Might's philosophy. It's a good philosophy. You should try it sometime. Izuku wasn't convinced. All Might's approach had worked for him, but Izuku wasn't All Might. He had his own fever, his own way of inspiring people. Betting on yourself and encouraging others to do the same, that was worth more than false smiles, at least that's what he told himself. The encounter with Eri changed everything. During a patrol with Mirio, they spotted a small girl in an alley being escorted by a man in a plague mask. The man had golden eyes that radiated menace. The girl looked terrified. Izuku's rough energy instinctively reacted to her fear, a protective surge that he couldn't suppress. The masked man noticed. "Interesting. Your quirk is quite sensitive. Are you heroes?" "Work-study students," Mirio said carefully. "Is that your daughter?" "In a sense. Her name is Eri. She's been misbehaving. I'm taking her home." Eri's eyes pleaded silently. Izuku's fever spiked. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong. The man was dangerous. The girl was in trouble. They should act immediately, but they were students. The man hadn't committed any obvious crime. Engaging without evidence could cause problems. "We'll escort you," Izuku said. "Make sure she gets home safely." The masked man, Overhaul, they'd later learn, smiled beneath his mask. "That won't be necessary." Eri, come. Eri flinched at his voice, took a step toward him, looked back at Izuku one more time with desperate eyes, and they let her go. Izuku watched Overhaul and Eri disappear around the corner and felt his fever burning with pure self-directed rage. We should have taken her, right there, right then. We had no legal justification. I don't care about legal justification. That girl was terrified. We're heroes. We will, but we need to investigate first. Gather evidence. Do this properly. Mirio's usual smile was gone. I know you want to bet on your instincts, but sometimes you need to bet on the system. Izuku wanted to argue, wanted to punch something, wanted to rewind time and make a different choice, but he couldn't. So he swallowed his frustration and helped investigate. What they discovered was horrifying. Overhaul was the leader of the Hasaikai, a Yakuza group trying to regain relevance in the post-All Might world. He'd been developing a quirk-destroying drug using Eri as the source material. Her quirk, Rewind, could reverse living beings to previous states. Overhaul was torturing her, breaking her down, using her body to create weapons. Sir Night-Eye coordinated with other agencies. Police prepared warrants. A raid was planned. Everything was being done properly, legally, heroically. It wasn't fast enough for Izuku. The raid on the Hasaikai compound happened 2 weeks after the Eri encounter. Heroes and police surrounded the Yakuza headquarters. Night-Eye's team would infiltrate, while other heroes provided perimeter security. Izuku, Mirio, and several other heroes entered through the front gate. The Yakuza activated their defense. A quirk user who could manipulate the building's layout, creating a three-dimensional maze that separated the raid teams. Izuku and Mirio ended up alone, following a path that led deeper into the compound. They encountered enemies, defeated them efficiently, and pressed forward until they reached Overhaul's chamber. The room was large, sterile, and decorated with Yakuza imagery. Overhaul stood in the center, Eri cowering behind him, and removed his plague mask to reveal a young man with sharp features and dead eyes. Heroes, you've broken into private property. How reckless. You're under arrest for child abuse, quirk experimentation, and drug manufacturing, Mirio declared. Surrender peacefully. I think not. Overhaul's hands touched the floor. My quirk, Overhaul, lets me disassemble and reassemble matter instantly. This room, this building, all of you, you're all just matter I can reshape. The floor erupted. Spikes of concrete thrust toward Mirio. The third year phased through them, already closing distance. His permeation made him nearly impossible to hit. Izuku charged from the opposite angle, rough energy crackling. Between them, they could corner Overhaul, except Overhaul was faster than expected. His quirk deconstructed and reconstructed at speeds that seemed impossible. Every surface was a weapon. Every object could become a projectile or barrier. He reshaped the battlefield constantly, forcing Mirio and Izuku to adapt every second. You're strong, Overhaul admitted. But strength alone won't change society. I'm creating a world where quirks can be controlled, where the chaos can be managed. My fever burns for order. Your fever burns for control, Izuku corrected, dodging a concrete pillar. That's different. Order without freedom is just slavery. And freedom without order is anarchy. Which is worse? Both. That's why we need heroes who bet on balance. They fought across the chamber. Mirio's permeation let him attack from unexpected angles. Izuku's rough energy shattered Overhaul's constructs. Together, they were pushing the Yakuza leader back until Overhaul revealed his trump card. He pulled Eri from her hiding spot. She's the key to everything. Her quirk can erase other quirks, can reverse evolution. With enough refinement, I can reshape humanity itself. Let her go, Mirio shouted. Or what? You'll attack and risk hitting her? Heroes are so predictable. Overhaul pulled out a gun loaded with quirk-destroying bullets, aimed at Mirio. Fired, Mirio could have dodged, could have phased through the bullet. Instead, he twisted his body to shield Eri, taking the shot in his shoulder. Permeation deactivated. Permanently. The quirk-destroying drug worked instantly. Mirio. Izuku rushed forward, but Overhaul created a wall between them. Your friend just lost his quirk, saving a girl he doesn't know. How noble, how stupid. Overhaul approached the fallen Mirio. Now let me deconstruct you both. Eri broke free from his grip and ran toward Izuku, away from the man who'd tortured her for years. Overhaul's expression twisted with rage. You little... Izuku caught Eri in his arms and felt her trembling. I've got you. You're safe now. Safe? You think you've won? Overhaul's quirk activated at maximum capacity. He deconstructed his subordinate, a loyal Yakuza member who'd been waiting outside, and fused with him. The resulting form was grotesque, inhuman, powerful. Monster Overhaul stood 3 meters tall with multiple arms and a body that shifted and morphed constantly. His quirk's range and speed had multiplied. A single touch could deconstruct anything. I'll break you both apart and rebuild you as raw material for my perfected world. Izuku set Eri down behind cover. Stay here. No matter what happens, stay hidden. But you'll die. He's too strong. I don't die easy. Trust me. Izuku faced Monster Overhaul, rough energy already surging. And right now, I'm betting everything on saving you. He expanded his domain. Domain expansion, idle death gamble. The sterile chamber transformed into a train station. Pachinko indicators appeared across impossible space. Romance manga panels flashed on invisible screens. The massive pachinko machine manifested, already beginning to spin. Monster Overhaul roared and tried to deconstruct the domain itself. His quirk touched the train station's walls, the floors, the very air. Everything was matter. Everything could be disassembled, except probability. You can't deconstruct a gamble, Overhaul. You can't reshape chance. This domain exists in probability space, and in this space, I make the rules. The pachinko balls dropped. First spin, normal attempt. Miss Monster Overhaul's multiple arms struck simultaneously. Deconstruction spread from each point of contact. Izuku dodged 3 strikes, but the 4th caught his leg. His flesh disassembled at the molecular level, leaving a gaping wound. No automatic regeneration. Not yet. He had to hit jackpot first. You're clever, Monster Overhaul acknowledged. But your domain requires time to activate its benefit, time I won't give you. He was right. Izuku needed to survive long enough for the jackpot to hit. Each second felt like an eternity as he dodged deconstruction attacks that would kill him if they connected. Second spin. Gold attempt. Third spin. Pseudo spin. Miss. Miss Monster Overhaul was relentless. His multiple arms created overlapping attack patterns. His quirk's range forced Izuku into smaller and smaller safe zones. The chamber, even transformed by the domain, was becoming a death trap. Mirio, quirkless and injured, tried to help. He threw rubble, created distractions, did everything a normal human could do. It wasn't enough, but it bought seconds. 4th spin. Rainbow Ricci. Enhanced probability from consecutive attempts. The indicators aligned. 3 identical numbers. Jackpot. Admiring You. And funk music erupted across the Shi-Hasaikai compound. Green cursed energy exploded from Izuku's body, unlimited and infinite. The automatic reverse curse technique activated, instantly healing his deconstructed leg. For 4 minutes and 11 seconds, he was unkillable. Monster Overhaul seemed to understand he'd just made a terrible mistake. Now, Izuku said, his voice carrying over the music, let me show you what happens when fever burns hotter than control. The beatdown that followed was systematic and brutal. Every time Monster Overhaul tried to deconstruct Izuku, the automatic RCT reconstructed him faster. Every time Izuku's rough energy struck, it shredded through biomass that shouldn't have been vulnerable. The serrated quality of his cursed energy was perfect against Overhaul's reconstruction. Each hit didn't just damage, it created wounds that resisted reassembly. The molecular disruption worked both ways. Monster Overhaul tried everything: massive deconstruction waves, spike forests, gravity-defying constructs. Nothing worked. Izuku tore through each defense like paper. This isn't fair, Overhaul screamed. You're cheating. Your quirk is broken. My fever never lies, Overhaul. Yours burned out a long time ago. You're not betting on order. You're betting against chaos because you're scared of it. Izuku grabbed one of Monster Overhaul's multiple arms and ripped it off. The fusion was destabilizing. The Yakuza member he'd absorbed was rejecting the combination. The grotesque form was falling apart. I just wanted to restore my boss, to give the Shi-Hasaikai relevance again, to create order from chaos. Noble goal, horrible execution. Izuku's rough energy coated his entire body. You used a child to achieve it, tortured her, broke her. That's not order. That's just cruelty wearing a philosophy. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. Time to end this. Izuku unleashed what he'd later think of as the jackpot rush. Hundreds of rough energy strikes delivered in rapid succession. Each punch carried unlimited cursed energy. Each impact shredded through Monster Overhaul's defenses. The fusion couldn't regenerate fast enough. The Yakuza member's biomass was systematically separated. Overhaul's original body was being exposed, vulnerable, defeated. Final strike. A rough energy palm thrust to the chest that sent Overhaul flying across the chamber and into unconsciousness. The timer hit 0 exactly as Overhaul's body hit the wall. Monster form collapsed. The grotesque fusion dissolved. What remained was just a man, broken, beaten, and no longer a threat. The domain faded. The music stopped. Izuku stood in the ruined chamber, breathing hard but smiling. Eri emerged from cover, tears streaming down her face. She ran to Izuku and grabbed his leg, holding on like she'd never let go. "You saved me. Just like you promised." "Yeah." Izuku picked her up gently. "That's what heroes do. We bet on people being worth saving, and you're definitely worth it." Mirio approached, quirkless but grinning. "That was incredible. Sir Night-Eye said you'd either save the world or destroy it. I think you just proved which one." The day's not over yet. They weren't wrong to be cautious. Outside the chamber, the raid was still ongoing. Heroes were fighting Yakuza members throughout the compound. And somewhere in the chaos, Sir Night-Eye had engaged another enemy. By the time Izuku and Mirio reached him, Night-Eye was already mortally wounded. The hero who could see the future hadn't been able to prevent his own death. He lay in a pool of blood, his foresight quirk still active, watching timelines collapse around him. "Midoriya." Night-Eye's voice was weak. "Come here." Izuku knelt beside him, Eri still clinging to his jacket. "Don't talk. We'll get you medical attention." "No, my future. I saw it. This is where it ends." Night-Eye smiled through the pain. "But I also saw your future. Multiple versions, some where you succeeded, many where you failed. Which one am I going to live?" "That's the thing about your quirk. You manipulate probability, rewrite odds. I've never been able to predict someone like you accurately." Night-Eye's hand grabbed Izuku's. "I saw a future where you'd fail to save Eri, where Overhaul would escape, where everything would go wrong, but you changed it. You bet on yourself and won." "We won together. You organized the raid. Mirio protected Eri. You burned hot enough to make the impossible possible. That's your gift." Night-Eye's grip tightened. "My quirk showed me certainty. Your quirk creates possibility. That's what makes you dangerous, and what makes you a true hero." Tears welled in Izuku's eyes. He hadn't cried since childhood, since before reincarnation, since before the fever started burning. "Keep betting on yourself," Night-Eye whispered. "And when the time comes, bet on others too. That's the real gamble. That's what heroes do." His hand went slack. His foresight quirk deactivated. The timeline stopped branching. Sir Night-Eye was dead. Izuku held the hero's body and cried for the first time since becoming Jackpot. Eri cried with him, not understanding everything but feeling the loss. Mirio stood nearby, quirkless but present, sharing the grief. The Shi-Hasaikai raid was a victory. Overhaul was arrested. Eri was saved. The quirk-destroying drug operation was shut down. But it cost Sir Night-Eye's life. Izuku learned that day that betting big didn't always mean winning everything. Sometimes you won the battle, but lost people along the way. Sometimes the fever burned hot enough to succeed, but not hot enough to prevent all tragedy. It was a lesson he'd carry forward. The months following the Shi-Hasaikai raid were transformative. Eri was placed in Yue's care, living in the dormitory with periodic visits to Izuku. Her rewind quirk was being carefully studied and trained. She'd decided that Izuku was her hero and nothing could convince her otherwise. "You bet on me when nobody else would," she said during one visit. "So I'm betting on you too. I'm going to get strong so I can help you someday." Izuku ruffled her hair. "Just focus on being a kid first. The hero stuff can wait." Mirio, now quirkless, continued attending UA as a student. He trained in support equipment and hand-to-hand combat. His perpetual smile was dimmer but still present. He'd lost his quirk but gained perspective. "Night-Eye was right about you," Mirio told Izuku. "You change futures just by existing. That's a special kind of power." "It's just probability manipulation." "No, it's more than that. You make people believe in possibilities they'd given up on. That's what real heroes do." The joint training arc between Class 1A and Class 1B happened in the spring semester. It was supposed to be a friendly competition between hero course classes, a chance to test strategies and quirks in controlled scenarios. Class 1B had been training specifically to counter Class 1A's strengths. and they'd studied Izuku's fighting style extensively. The final match was Izuku's team against a Class 1B squad led by Monoma, the copying quirk user who could temporarily replicate other quirks. "We've got the perfect strategy against Jackpot," Monoma declared before the match. "Your domain requires time to activate its jackpot effect. We'll stall you out, make you waste energy, and win through attrition." It was a sound strategy. Against most opponents, it would have worked. But Izuku had been training too. The match began in an urban training ground. Class 1B's team immediately spread out using hit-and-run tactics to avoid direct confrontation. They had a quirk user who could slow time perception, another who could create illusions, and a third who could manipulate sound. Together, they made it nearly impossible to land solid hits. Izuku's team, Todoroki, Ida, and Tokoyami, provided support, but the real show was watching Izuku adapt to their strategy. Domain expansion, idle death gamble. The train station manifested, pachinko machine appeared, indicators began spinning, first jackpot hit in 14 seconds. Class 1B's team was stunned. "How did you activate it so fast?" "Practice." Izuku grinned. "I've been working on consecutive jackpot loops. Watch this." For 4 minutes and 11 seconds, he dominated the battlefield. Rough energy at maximum output. Auto-regeneration negating any damage they managed to inflict. Speed that made Ida look slow. When the timer hit 0, he immediately re-expanded the domain. Second jackpot hit in 9 seconds. "He's chaining them," Monoma shouted. "Fall back, regroup." But there was no regrouping. Izuku had created an infinite jackpot loop, each 4-minute 11-second period ending just in time to start another. As long as he kept hitting jackpots, he could maintain the state indefinitely. Class 1B surrendered after the third consecutive jackpot. They'd prepared for one domain, not 3. Not infinite. Izuku's victory was so complete that even Class 1A's students looked concerned. "You're getting scary," Kaminari said afterward. "Like, actually terrifying. Just getting stronger. That's what we're here for, right?" But privately, Izuku wondered if Kaminari was right. The infinite jackpot loop was powerful. Too powerful, maybe. He could theoretically maintain the state forever if he kept winning. What were the limits? What were the costs? He didn't know yet, and that uncertainty was both thrilling and terrifying. The seasons changed. Second year began. Class 1A grew stronger collectively. Bakugo mellowed slightly. Todoroki fully integrated both quirk aspects. Ida became class president. Everyone was maturing, growing, becoming real heroes. And across Japan, villain activity intensified. The League of Villains had merged with a larger organization called the Meta Liberation Army, forming the Paranormal Liberation Front. Their goal was to destroy hero society and create a world where quirk usage wasn't restricted. Intelligence agencies tracked them to a mountain mansion. Heroes coordinated a massive raid, multiple teams, dozens of pro heroes, hundreds of police. Students were included in the operation. Second-year students with provisional licenses were deemed ready for real combat. Izuku was assigned to the mansion raid team, along with several classmates. The plan was simple: infiltrate the mansion, neutralize key villains, extract information about the PLF's broader network. What actually happened was chaos. The mansion was a trap. The moment heroes entered, the entire structure activated. Walls shifted, floors collapsed. A massive creature, Gigantomachia, Shigaraki's creation, began awakening in the sublevels, and in the central chamber, Shigaraki Tomura was completing his transformation. Izuku reached the chamber first, breaking through walls with rough energy, ignoring the trap's intended paths, betting on his instincts to lead him to the biggest threat. He found Shigaraki in a medical tank, 75% through the process of inheriting All for One's power. The villain was conscious, but restrained, his body transforming, multiple quirks being integrated into his genetic code. Well, Iraki's voice crackled through the tank's speakers. "The gambling hero. I've wanted to meet you. Master talks about you sometimes, says you're an anomaly. Your master is a megalomaniac who steals quirks. His opinion doesn't mean much. Harsh, but fair." Shigaraki smiled through the tank's glass. "Want to know a secret? This process I'm undergoing, it's supposed to make me his successor. Give me his power, his quirks, his legacy, but I'm betting on something different." "What's that?" "That I'll take his power and make it my own, become something he never expected." Sound familiar? Gambling boy? It did. Izuku's reincarnation was similar, taking Hakari's power and making it his own in a new world. They were both betting on surpassing their predecessors, didn't make Shigaraki any less dangerous. "I'm gonna stop you," Izuku said. "Right here, right now, before you complete that transformation. You can try, but I'm already 75% done, and even incomplete, I'm strong enough to..." The tank shattered. Shigaraki emerged, dripping with preservation fluid, his body still mid-transformation. White hair, red eyes, hands that radiated decay. "Let's play a game, Jackpot. My incomplete power against your complete technique. Winner takes the future." Domain expansion, idle death gamble. The chamber transformed. Train station overlaid reality. But before the pachinko machine could fully manifest, Shigaraki activated multiple quirks simultaneously. Decay spread across the domain's floor. Air cannon disrupted the train station's walls. A strength enhancement quirk multiplied his physical power. The domain cracked, fractured, and for the first time since Izuku had mastered the technique, it shattered completely. "Impossible. Your domain is strong," Shigaraki acknowledged, "but I've got multiple quirks working in combination. All for One's legacy is versatile, overwhelming, superior." They fought without the domain, pure combat. Shigaraki's decay versus Izuku's rough energy. The chamber was destroyed in seconds. Walls crumbled, ceiling collapsed. The battle spilled into adjacent rooms. Other heroes arrived to support. Todoroki created ice barriers to slow Shigaraki. Bakugo launched explosive attacks, but Shigaraki's power was growing. With each passing second, more of All for One's quirks integrated. More strength, more speed, more versatility. "Fall back." Endeavor, now the #1 hero, ordered. "This enemy is beyond student capability." Izuku refused. "I can hit a jackpot. Just need a few seconds." Gigantomachia burst through the mansion's floor. The massive creature that had served All for One for decades, now serving Shigaraki, arrived to protect his new master. "Shigaraki!" Gigantomachia's voice shook the building. "Master successor, I've come!" Shigaraki climbed onto the creature's back. "Perfect timing, Makia. Let's go. We've tested these heroes enough." "Wait." Izuku tried to pursue, but Gigantomachia's massive hands swatted him aside like an insect. The rough energy absorbed some impact, but the sheer force still sent him crashing through multiple walls. By the time he recovered, Shigaraki and Gigantomachia were gone. The mansion was collapsing. Heroes were evacuating. The raid was technically successful. They'd disrupted the PLF's plans, but they'd failed to stop Shigaraki. Izuku stood in the ruins, fists clenched, and felt his fever burning with pure frustration. "I need to get stronger. Faster jackpots. Longer duration. Something that can counter multiple quirks working together." Endeavor approached, his flame beard flickering. "You fought well, Midoriya, but that enemy is beyond what any student should face. Then I'll stop being a student level. I'll get strong enough to..." "You're already strong enough. The problem is you're fighting alone." Endeavor's expression was stern but not unkind. "Power isn't everything. All Might understood that. You need to learn it too." It was good advice. Izuku hated receiving advice from Endeavor, but it was still good advice. The aftermath of the Paranormal Liberation War was catastrophic. Hundreds of heroes injured, Midnight had died in combat, multiple students were traumatized, and worst of all, Shigaraki had escaped with his transformation incomplete but still dangerous. Society's faith in heroes crumbled further. Crime rates spiked. Civilians stopped trusting hero agencies. The careful balance that had barely held after All Might's retirement finally collapsed completely. And Izuku Midoriya made a decision. He left you, not officially, not permanently, just left. Disappeared one night with a note saying he'd return when Shigaraki was defeated. All Might tried to stop him. Class 1A tried to intervene. But Izuku was adamant. Heroes were dying. Society was falling apart. And he had the power to hunt villains alone. "I'm betting everything on stopping Shigaraki," he told All Might via phone. "You can't talk me out of it." "I'm not trying to. I'm just asking you to be careful. Careful doesn't win. Hot fever wins, and mine's never burned hotter." He hung up and disappeared into the darkness of a collapsing society. The Dark Hero arc lasted 3 months. Izuku operated alone, hunting villain groups across Japan. His provisional license let him act legally. His power let him act effectively. His obsession drove him forward without rest. He hit jackpot states repeatedly, sometimes 3 times in a day. The automatic reverse curse technique kept him alive, healed injuries that should have been fatal. sustained a body that should have collapsed from exhaustion. But he wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating properly, wasn't maintaining any kind of normal life. His fever was burning obsessively, consuming everything else. The fight against Lady Nagant exemplified his deterioration. She was a former hero turned assassin, hired by All for One to eliminate threats. Her quirk let her transform her arm into a rifle with impossible range and accuracy. Their battle happened across a city, sniper versus brawler. She hit him from kilometers away. He chased her down with rough energy speed boosts. They clashed on rooftops, in alleyways, across impossible distances. Izuku activated jackpot mode and became unkillable again. Her bullets pierced his brain, his heart, his lungs. Each wound healed instantly. He closed the distance relentlessly. When he finally reached her, covered in blood, both dried and fresh, Lady Nagant looked at him with something resembling pity. "You're going to kill yourself at this rate. Not from enemies, from your own obsession. I'll stop when Shigaraki's dead." "Will you? Or will you just find another enemy, another excuse to keep burning?" She surrendered before he could respond. The heroes arrived to arrest her. Izuku disappeared before they could question him, but her words stayed with him. Was he betting on defeating Shigaraki, or was he just addicted to the fever, to the high of hitting jackpots, to the feeling of invincibility that came with unlimited cursed energy? He didn't know anymore. The intervention happened in an abandoned city district. Class 1A tracked him down. Bakugo, Todoroki, Ida, and the entire class surrounded him in a standoff that felt more like an intervention than a confrontation. "Come back to UA," Ida said. "This solo operation isn't sustainable." "I'm fine." "You're covered in blood," Todoroki observed. "You haven't slept in days. You're running on jackpot states alone." "That's not fine." "I'll rest when Shigaraki's defeated." Bakugo stepped forward. "You forgot the most important bet, dumbass." Izuku turned to face his childhood rival. "What bet?" "Betting on your friends. You're so focused on your own power, your own fever, your own jackpot that you forgot we're here too. We can help. We want to help. But you shut us out." "I'm protecting you." "Bullshit, bullshit. You're protecting your ego. Admitting you need help means admitting your fever isn't enough alone, and that scares you more than any villain." The words hit harder than any punch. Izuku stumbled, not physically, but emotionally. His fever had been burning so hot for so long that he'd forgotten about everything else. About friendship, about teamwork, about the original reason he'd wanted to be a hero. "I keep winning jackpots," Izuku said quietly, "but it feels like I'm losing everything else." Uraraka approached carefully. "Then stop gambling alone. Bet on all of us together. That's a better wager anyway." Izuku looked at his classmates, his friends, and felt something crack inside his chest. Not his fever, something deeper. The obsession that had been driving him past sustainability. He collapsed, not from injury, just from exhaustion finally catching up. His friends caught him before he hit the ground. "Let's go home," Todoroki said. "Yeah," Izuku agreed. "Let's go home." The return to UA was quiet. No fanfare, no punishment, just acceptance. Izuku was readmitted to class with the understanding that he'd participate in the final preparations for confronting Shigaraki and All for One. Because the intelligence was clear. The final war was coming. The Paranormal Liberation Front was planning a massive assault on Hero Society. Simultaneous attacks across Japan. Coordinated villain strikes designed to overwhelm and destroy. Heroes were preparing their own response. A preemptive strike. Multiple battlefield divisions, coordinated assaults on PLF strongholds. The final war would determine the future of Hero Society, and Izuku Midoriya would be at its center. The preparation period was intense. UA fortified its defenses. Students trained relentlessly. Support Course developed new equipment. Hero agencies coordinated strategies. Eri visited Izuku during this time. Her rewind quirk had been training under Aizawa's supervision. She could now control small-scale rewinds without losing control. "I want to help in the war," she said. "Use my quirk to support heroes." "Absolutely not. You're too young. You were my age when you started betting on yourself." "Different situation." "No, it's the same. I want to bet on being useful, on paying back the hero who saved me." Her red eyes were determined. "You taught me that everyone's fever matters. Mine burns to help you." Izuku wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but he recognized that determination. It was the same fire that drove him forward. "Fine, but you stay in the rear support area, medical team only. no frontline combat. Deal. The war began on a Tuesday morning. Multiple hero teams deployed simultaneously. Izuku's division was tasked with confronting Shigaraki at a floating sky coffin, a massive structure created by PLF support to protect their leader. The battle began before they even reached the target. Villains attacked from all angles. The sky coffin deployed defensive measures. Chaos erupted across the battlefield. Izuku's fever burned hotter than it ever had before. This was it. The ultimate gamble, win or lose everything. He reached the sky coffin's interior first, breaking through defenses with rough energy. Inside, floating in a medical suspension, was Shigaraki Tomura, except he wasn't just Shigaraki anymore. The transformation was complete. All for One's consciousness had merged with Shigaraki's body. Multiple quirks were fully integrated. The result was something beyond either individual. A hybrid villain with both personalities, both power sets, both ambitions. Izuku Midoriya, the merged entity, spoke with a voice that was neither fully Shigaraki nor fully All for One. The gambling hero. The anomaly. You've come to bet against me. I've come to end you. Ambitious, but you're facing something beyond your understanding. I have All for One's quirks, Shigaraki's determination. Your domain won't save you this time. We'll see about that. Izuku expanded his domain. Domain expansion, idle death gamble. The train station manifested around the sky coffin's interior. Pachinko indicators appeared. Romance manga panels flashed. The massive machine began spinning, and Shigaraki destroyed it. Not disrupted, not weakened, completely destroyed. Multiple quirks activated simultaneously. Decay to corrode the domain's foundation, air cannon to blast apart the manifestations, a reality warping quirk to reject the probability space itself. The domain shattered like glass. The train station dissolved, the pachinko machine exploded into fragments. Izuku stood in the ruined space, stunned. My domain. You destroyed my domain. Your gamble ends here, hero. Black. Time to face reality without probability manipulation. They fought. Raw combat without the domain's protection. Shigaraki's multiple quirks created devastating combinations. Decay spread across any surface Izuku touched. Air cannon created impossible pressure attacks. Strength enhancement multiplied physical blows. Izuku used rough cursed energy in base form, but without jackpot mode's regeneration, he was vulnerable. Actually vulnerable. For the first time since mastering his technique, Todoroki and Bakugo arrived to support. Ice and explosions created opportunities. Other heroes joined the battle, but Shigaraki was overwhelming them all. This is what true power looks like, Shigaraki declared. Not gambling, not probability, just overwhelming force and versatile application. He was winning. Heroes were falling back. Students were injured. Shigaraki's advance seemed unstoppable, and Izuku realized something. He'd been betting on probability, on his domain, on jackpot states. But true gambling wasn't about manipulating odds. It was about betting on the impossible. I have an idea, Izuku said quietly, but it's going to cost me everything. What are you talking about? Bakugo demanded. A binding vow. I bet my ability to ever use jackpot again, for one perfect jackpot. Right now. Guaranteed. That's insane. You'll lose your quirk permanently. Not my quirk. My technique. There's a difference, Izuku smiled back, and it's a good bet. One perfect jackpot in exchange for everyone's future. He activated the binding vow before anyone could stop him. The sensation was immediate and horrifying. He felt the cursed technique in his soul beginning to burn away. The reincarnation gift from Hakari Kinji was being consumed as fuel for one final gamble. In exchange, he received certainty. Domain expansion, idle death gamble, perfect version. The train station manifested instantly. No spin required, no probability check, just immediate, guaranteed jackpot. Admiring You played but sounded melancholic. Final, the funk music blasted one last time. For 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Izuku had infinite cursed energy. Automatic regeneration at maximum speed, rough energy at peak serration, and the knowledge that this was his last time ever. Even if you win, Shigaraki observed, you lose your power. That's a terrible bet. I'm not betting on my power, I'm betting on what comes after, on everyone else's fever, on the future I'm creating by removing you. They clashed in the center of the battlefield. Every hit from Shigaraki would have killed a normal person. Every counter from Izuku dismantled stolen quirks one by one. The serrated, rough energy was for this. It cut through quirk factors at a fundamental level, severing the connections All for One had created. Each strike reduced Shigaraki's arsenal. My entire fever, Izuku said as he fought. Everyone's passion, everyone's bet on a better future. That's what I'm carrying. Not just mine. Everyone's. Teamer, 3 minutes remaining. Shigaraki was adapting, using quirks defensively, but Izuku's unlimited energy let him attack relentlessly. No fatigue, no hesitation, no holding back. Timer, 2 minutes remaining. Other heroes joined the assault, creating openings, providing support, betting on Izuku's success. Even Bakugo fought alongside him without complaint. Timer, 1 minute remaining. Shigaraki's form was degrading. The multiple quirks were rejecting each other under the sustained assault. All for One's consciousness was trying to separate from Shigaraki's body. 30 seconds remaining. Izuku channeled everything into one final technique. Not named, not declared. Just his entire soul focused into a single rough energy punch. The strike didn't just hit Shigaraki's body. It cut through All for One's will, severed the connection between consciousnesses, and destroyed the foundation of their merger. For one brief moment, Tenko Shimura, the boy Shigaraki had been before All for One corrupted him, surfaced. Thank you. 0. The jackpot ended. The domain shattered permanently. The music stopped forever. Izuku collapsed, power completely gone. No more rough, cursed energy. No more domain expansion. No more jackpot states. He was quirkless again. Completely powerless, but he was smiling. I made the right bet. Shigaraki's body fell. All for One's consciousness was destroyed. The war wasn't over, other battlefields were still active, but this confrontation was finished. Heroes secured the area. Medical teams arrived. Izuku was evacuated alongside other injured fighters. And as he was carried away on a stretcher, he felt peace. His fever was still burning. Not as hot, maybe, but still there, still present. Because being a hero wasn't about power. It was about the bet you made, and he'd bet everything on everyone else's future. That was enough. The immediate aftermath of the war was chaos. Villains were being arrested off Japan, casualties were counted, damage was assessed. Society was beginning the long process of recovery. Izuku spent 2 weeks in the hospital, not from physical injuries, those had healed during his final jackpot, but from cursed energy depletion. His soul needed time to adjust to the permanent loss of Hakari's technique. Class 1A visited constantly, bringing food, sharing stories, providing company. Bakugo complained about everything. Todoroki brought soba. Uraraka cried with relief. Even Aizawa stopped by, though he just nodded and left without saying much. Eri visited last. She sat beside his bed, her red eyes studying him carefully. You don't have your power anymore. No, used it all up. Do you regret it? Izuku considered the question. Did he regret burning away his cursed technique? Losing the jackpot states? Giving up the domain expansion? Never. I bet everything on that moment, and I won what mattered most. What did you win? A future where you and everyone else can bet on yourselves. That's worth more than any amount of power. Eri smiled. Then I'm betting on helping you. When I get older, when I'm strong enough, I'll use my rewind quirk to give you your power back. Eri, I don't think it works like I'm betting it will, and you taught me that betting on yourself is how you win. He couldn't argue with his own philosophy. Months passed. Izuku was discharged from the hospital, returned to UA, despite having no quirk. The school administration debated whether he could continue in the hero course. All Might settled the argument. Being a hero isn't about quirks, it's about the spirit. And Midoriya has more of that than anyone I've known. So Izuku stayed, trained in hand-to-hand combat without cursed energy enhancement, learned to use support equipment, studied tactics and strategy, became the tactical coordinator for Class 1A operations. His hero name remained Jackpot, but the meaning changed. Because I help others hit their jackpots. Years passed, Class 1A graduated, became pro-heroes. Scattered across Japan to various agencies, Izuku Midoriya graduated with them, despite being quirkless. His final project was a thesis on tactical coordination and probability analysis. It became required reading for hero students. He joined an agency not as a frontline fighter, but as a field commander. His ability to read battlefields, predict enemy movements, and coordinate hero teams made him invaluable. The support equipment helped. Grappling hooks for mobility, flash grenades for distraction, reinforced gauntlets for close combat. He wasn't as powerful as during his jackpot days, but he was still effective. More importantly, he was happy. The fever still burned. Maybe not as hot as before, but steady, consistent. pointing toward helping others succeed rather than achieving personal victory. 5 years after the war, Izuku stood on a rooftop overlooking Tokyo. The city had recovered. Crime rates had stabilized. Hero society had been reformed. The future he'd bet everything to create was real. Eri, now a teenager training at UA, joined him on the rooftop. Her rewind quirk had developed significantly. She could now reverse injuries, restore damaged objects, and theoretically restore lost quirks. "I'm ready," she said. "I can give you your power back. I've practiced. I know I can do it." Izuku smiled. "I know you can, but I don't need it back." "What? But you loved using jackpot. I've seen the videos. You were incredible." "I was powerful. There's a difference." He gestured at the city below. "This future, this peace, I helped create it without needing infinite cursed energy. That proves the point I've been trying to make since the beginning." "What point?" "That being a hero isn't about the power you have. It's about the bet you make, the fever you let burn, the choice to fight for something bigger than yourself." Eri considered this. "So you don't want your quirk back?" "I didn't say that." Izuku's grin was familiar, the same expression he'd worn during his jackpot days. "I said I don't need it, but if you're offering, I won't say no. Having backup options is just good strategy." "Then hold still. This might feel weird." Her horn glowed. Rewind activated. Time flowed backward around Izuku's soul, targeting the specific moment when he'd burned away his cursed technique. The sensation was indescribable, like being unmade and remade simultaneously. His soul rejecting the restoration while accepting it, possibility and impossibility colliding, and then it was done. Izuku felt rough, cursed energy flow through him again for the first time in 5 years. Not as strong as before, Eri's restoration wasn't perfect, maybe 60% of his original power, but it was there. "Did it work?" Eri asked nervously. Izuku tested. Rough energy crackled around his fist, not quite as serrated as before, but present. He tried expanding his domain, nothing happened. The domain expansion was gone permanently. The binding vow had burned that ability completely. But the rough cursed energy remained. The basic technique was restored. "It worked partially," Izuku reported. "No domain, but the rough energy is back. That's more than enough." "I'm sorry I couldn't restore everything. This is perfect. Better than perfect." He ruffled her hair. "You gave me backup power without making me reliant on it again. That's exactly what I needed." They stood on the rooftop together, watching the sunset over Tokyo, the city of heroes, villains, and everyone in between. The city where Izuku Midoriya had learned to bet on himself and others. His phone buzzed. Bakugo texting, "Stop being dramatic on rooftops and get to the agency. We've got a situation." Izuku smiled. Some things never changed. "Let's go," he told Eri. "Time to show everyone that the gambling hero is back in business." "I thought you said you didn't need your power back?" "I don't need it, but having it makes the job more fun." His grin widened. "And what's life without a little gambling?" They left the rooftop. Izuku returned to hero work with 60% of his original power and 100% of his original fever. Because power faded, techniques could be lost, quirks could be stolen, but fever, true passion, real determination, the burning need to achieve something, that was eternal. That was what made heroes. That was what made Izuku Midoriya. Years later, long after the immediate chaos had settled into routine heroism, Izuku found himself teaching at UA, part-time instructor for the hero course, sharing tactical knowledge and probability analysis with the next generation. His students were a mixture of powerful quirks and weaker abilities, all of them eager to become heroes. All of them betting on themselves in their own ways. During one class, a student with a luck manipulation quirk, weak and unpredictable, asked, "Sensei, your quirk was probability manipulation, right? How did you get so strong with something that's basically just luck?" The other students leaned in, curious. Everyone knew Jackpot's story. The tournament winner, the hero killer's defeater, the one who'd sacrificed his power to end the war. Izuku smiled. "I'm going to tell you a secret about luck and probability. Are you ready?" "Yes. Luck isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create. Every decision, every action, every bet you make that shapes your luck, that changes your probability." He held up his hand, letting rough, cursed energy crackle around it, weak compared to his peak, but still present. "My quirk let me manipulate probability directly. Yours might not be as strong, but the principle is the same. You bet on yourself, you push your limits, you let your fever burn hot enough that luck has no choice but to favor you. But what if we fail? Then you fail, and you learn from it, and you bet again. Izuku's expression was serious. The only real failure is not making the bet at all, living cautiously, letting your fever die because you're afraid of losing. One student, a quiet girl with a defensive quirk, raised her hand. Sensei, they say you gave up your power to save everyone. Do you regret it? Never. But you were so strong, you could have been the #1 hero. Maybe. Or maybe I would have burned myself out, chasing jackpots forever. Izuku shook his head. I made the right bet, traded personal power for collective future, and look what we got. A generation of heroes who know that power alone isn't enough. The class was silent, processing this. Remember, Izuku continued, being a hero isn't about having the strongest quirk. It's about making the right bets, choosing what's worth fighting for, letting your fever burn for something bigger than yourself. He dismissed class early. As students filed out, discussing probability and betting and fever, Izuku remained behind. His phone showed a message from All Might. Good lecture. You sound more like a teacher than I ever did. Izuku smiled. All Might had retired years ago, but still kept in touch, still offered wisdom, still believed in the next generation. Another message, this time from Bakugo. Stop being philosophical and get to the agency. Triple villain attack downtown, need coordination. Work never stopped. The fever never cooled. But that was fine. Izuku Midoriya grabbed his support equipment, activated his partial rough cursed energy, and headed out. Not as strong as his peak, not as overwhelming as during his jackpot days, but still betting on himself, still burning hot, still making the impossible possible through sheer determination and strategic gambling. The funk music played in his memory, Admiring You by DJ Glue, the soundtrack to his greatest moments. It didn't manifest externally anymore without the domain expansion, but he could hear it internally whenever his fever burned hot enough. He arrived at the agency where Bakugo, Todoroki, and several other graduates were coordinating response to the villain attack. Screens showed 3 different locations, each with a separate threat. Midoriya, finally, Bakugo growled. We need tactical analysis. These villains are coordinated. Izuku studied the screens, his probability sense, weakened but functional, reading the patterns. They're creating a triangle formation, forcing us to split resources, classic distraction strategy. For what? Something bigger, something we're not seeing yet. He pulled up additional surveillance. Eri, are you on comms? Yes, Sensei. Her voice came through clearly. She was part of the rescue team now, using her rewind quirk to heal injured heroes. Stay alert. I think this is a feint for something else. His instincts proved correct. While heroes responded to the 3 attacks, a 4th villain team hit a support equipment facility, trying to steal prototype weapons, but Izuku had anticipated this, had positioned backup teams in advance. His tactical coordination created a trap that the villains walked right into. How did you know? Todoroki asked afterward. Probability analysis. The 3 attacks were too obvious, too coordinated to be random. Someone was betting we'd take the bait. I bet they were wrong. You really can't stop gambling, can you? Izuku grinned. Why would I? Life's boring without stakes. The villain attack was resolved. Minimal casualties, no civilian deaths, equipment secured. Another successful operation coordinated by the quirkless tactical hero. Evening fell over Tokyo. Izuku walked home through the recovered city, past civilians who recognized him and nodded respectfully. Not the fame of his tournament days, just quiet recognition. He'd bet everything and won what mattered, had lost his power but gained perspective, had sacrificed individual strength for collective safety, and he'd do it again without hesitation, because that's what heroes did. They bet on others, they burned their fever for something larger, they made the impossible possible through determination alone. Izuku Midoriya reached his apartment and collapsed on the couch, exhausted but satisfied. His phone showed dozens of messages, students asking questions, heroes requesting tactical advice, agencies offering consulting work. He'd respond tomorrow. Tonight, he'd rest. But before sleeping, he opened a drawer and pulled out an old photograph. Class 1A's graduation picture. 20 students who'd become heroes, who'd survived the war, who'd built the better future together. Always bet on Izuku, he whispered to the photograph, remembering the tagline that had defined his youth. But now it meant something different, not betting on his own power, betting on the choice to keep pushing forward, keep burning hot, to keep making the right gambles even when the odds seemed impossible. That was the real lesson of Jackpot. That was the legacy worth leaving. Izuku Midoriya, the gambling hero, closed his eyes and smiled. His fever still burned, and it always would. 10 years after the war, Izuku stood at UA's entrance, now a full-time instructor. Students rushed past, excited about their first day. Heroes flew overhead, maintaining peace. Eri, now a pro-hero herself, landed beside him. Ready for another semester, Sensei, always. Teaching is just another kind of gambling, betting on the next generation being better than ours. That's a good bet. The best bet. They walked into UA together, the school that had shaped them both, the institution that had taught them what being a hero really meant. Izuku's rough, cursed energy flickered around his hands. Weak. Partial. Nothing compared to his peak. But enough. Always enough. Because the real power wasn't in the curse technique, wasn't in the domain expansion, wasn't in the jackpot states. It was in the fever. The burning passion that made people get up every morning and try to be better, try to help others, try to create a future worth believing in. That fever never died, that fever never lied. And as long as it burned, heroes would exist. Izuku Midoriya smiled at the sky, hearing the funk music play one last time in his memory. Always bet on Izuku, he whispered, not because he was the strongest, not because he had the best quirk, but because he'd learned the ultimate lesson. The best gamble you can make is betting on everyone's fever burning together. That was heroism. That was victory. That was enough. The end.
And now, it's time for our Patreon shout-out. For our pro-hero tier, the rising stars lighting the path of justice, Ancient Chant, and Javon McQuire. Next up, the absolute pillars of the channel. These legends are holding it down like All Might himself. Huge shout-out to our symbols of peace, Neostar Productions, Asael Cardenas, Shakon Simmons, Agroxa298, SunaWin631, Elijah Saunders, Peter Hamilton, Freddy_Rose, Omega, Toxic Rune, Chris Talley, Alexander Thompson, Remorseful Z, Black Vein, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift SKATAR, Akino Hijima, Corey Tokars, Jan, Exop3656, Devin Black, Crow, YSBRYD, Roberto Ramos Di Cristina, Joe Bros, Ravon Crimson River, Dante Alistar, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Donna Cafe, Zeph, KC, Howie60, Ignacio, and Albert. You guys are smashing it at 100%.
And finally, the heavy hitters, the elite squad going beyond plus ultra. Give it up for the hope of the universe, Debbie Vo, Govslands21, LS Morningstar, Moral, Spintown, I Shoot X50, Greg Green, James, Kwon Yen Thompson, Juan, I'm Calver, and Colesy. You guys are the true heroes of this story.
Thanks for watching. If you felt the rush, don't let the fever die. Smash subscribe and gamble on the channel's future. We're going all in for the next episode, so turn on notifications to never miss a roll. The jackpot keeps spinning, and I'll see you soon.